Should I put the share now?
No, no, no. Hello and welcome to a brand new special Unsourced World live stream. Today I'm going to be talking about the X-Men universe made by Fox, I think the longest running original cinematic universe for comic book adaptations. Like what else? I guess you have the Superman Donner stuff. I think with 4 Superman movies and 1 Supergirl movie, that kind of counts. But this was like I think 12 movies at this point, right? So
13.
13. It's lucky 13. So what we're gonna do today is because of all this new stuff going on with the MCU, building up the mutants, having first X in the cameo in Doctor Strange 2, um, pretty much confirming the existence of the X gene in the Miss Marvel finale, and even like the small little reference to Wolverine in this week's episode of She-Hulk. We thought, hey, it'd be fun to look back at the original OG cinematic universe and rank them. And we're gonna be going in release date order. So yeah, let's do it. Talk about these movies. Maybe not be a little bit too strict about these. Just let us see where the conversation goes and tells us. So let me just share my screen first, and let's talk about the first film. Let me share screen. Share. Here we go. Let me just zoom in on there. So let's talk about X-Men 1. Now, I'm going to say where I'm going to do it. We're talking about it, and we're going to see where you put it, and you can talk about it as well if you have anything extra to add. I would put this. We're going to see where this goes. Now, obviously, a lot of these will be kind of like influenced by what we put other ones. I might put this higher, but right now I'm putting it in A rank. Very good. I think S is for like perfect or near perfect. The A rank is very, very good. What do you think about X-Men, the first one?
I mean, I think like the A rank is indeed very, very good. That's where I would also place those. I would probably have, I have like maybe just 2 films in the top S. So X-Men, I think, deserves like the A rank. And it is, I mean, it's not the best X-Men movie, in my opinion, but it's definitely up there. And, my opinion of it has gone up over the years, I think, because initially, you know, I think like I maybe didn't think it was like that great. It was just good. And now I'm like, well, yeah, it's actually better than it used to be. So,
I agree. When I rewatched this, I watched this a while back, last year, and I watched it again for this stream. I feel like it's close to perfect. It's close to perfect for what it wants to be. Now, this is one of the first. Everyone gives X2 like this, like all the flowers, all the praise, all the
yeah.
acclaim for being like this. Like, oh, it's melding comic book shenanigans with like high drama, like high character drama concepts, which is true. But X-Men kind of did that first a lot. Like it's like outside the really wacky like shenanigans, like was up to, which was like his DNA changer ray,
Hmm.
um, like it's really sort of concise and grounded, and it's very inward looking. Like there's so much about it that feels almost indie, like
Hmm.
everything that's setting up Rogue and like her backstory and all the scenes introducing like that dynamic with Wolverine. It's so stripped back. It's so like toned down. It puts like the dynamic first, and I think that really kind of elevates it a lot. And I feel like people really sort of like downgrade a bit because of how the wacky stuff in it. Because it has a lot of wacky stuff. It has like you were expecting yellow Hispanics line. It has Sandra Kelly becoming water. It has like Rogue. It has the DNA changing machine. All right, it has all this wacky stuff, but it really is honestly very like centralized, very focused, very honed.
Yeah, I think I really came to appreciate that in hindsight that this movie is very economical. Like in terms of its plotting, it's the later X-Men movies tend to be uh, far more expansive and they're not very economical. Like they often have a lot of characters that they don't know what to do with, I think. And so they have plot points that don't necessarily get enough time to really play out to their full potential. Whereas here, I think it's a very it's a very stripped down story, but every element that they introduce comes into play. Like it just feels very well paced. Like they bring in, it's like what's that, like the law of conservation of detail or whatever they call it. And I kind of love that about it. It's just so, you feel like it's almost like a perfect little self-contained gem of storytelling, you know. And I think that's part of what makes it great. It's also, I love that it's not as ambitious. It doesn't have world-ending stakes. I mean, like the climax is about the DNA changing the machine, about changing people into mutants, and that's like the risk. I mean, they say it might take out New York or whatever, but it's still just very small scale, and it kind of feels like a mid-budget movie, and it is a mid-budget movie. Like, it doesn't have that much money to it, but I think that's definitely part of its charm.
Yeah, no, totally agree with all of that. I think that the places where this really does sort of show its age and show some cracks is, I think it when it straddles that line. Uh, like, I think a lot of the more eccentric stuff doesn't really work out as well. Now, again, it doesn't really influence or detract from my enjoyment of it at all. But I think that it feels too set piece oriented. It feels very segmented. Like, you have the character stuff, and you have, okay, now they go to a bank and have a fight. Now they go to the train, have a fight. Now they're in the middle of Statue of Liberty, have a fight. Meanwhile, you have all this, like I said, really character driven drama stuff. So I think it's always been a problem with, like, of comic movies that really want to focus on some sort of inner, intimate, like, philosophical sort of angle to their story, is they still have to have, like, set pieces, and this isn't any different than that, which is a shame. But it's nature of the beast.
I mean, I don't think the set pieces necessarily overwhelm the film, though, because it,
I'm
it
not that it
really,
overwhelms it, but that I
yeah.
feel it kind of just goes too much back and forth. Like, it pulls me out a little. I
Mm.
still really enjoy the movie. I still think it's really, really good. If it was a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more mature for what it wants to be or what it could be, I would be like I would call it my favorite, honestly.
Mm. Well, I will say though that the tone, like, I just want to mention that, like, I love the tone of this movie because it doesn't have a lot of that. It takes itself seriously, but it also, it doesn't have that ironic detachment that a lot of contemporary superhero movies have. They're not like making fun of how ridiculous this is all the time. Like, I think there's maybe like one or two lines here or there, like that thing about the yellow spandex or whatever. But it doesn't do any of that, wink wink stuff that I think Marvel has kind of made the requirement. And I think, like, also in my mind, the set pieces here, though, they're still like fairly small scale. Like, they tend to be well integrated with the character. So for me, they were never really a distraction.
Well, not so much a distraction, but just feels like, okay, we're telling a really kind of well-honed character-driven story. Now let's have a fight.
Yeah.
Like, okay, here's like the segment where Toad jumps around the shenanigans. Like, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. I'm not, again, it's not so much that they're detracting or they're overwhelming the movie or anything like that, but it just takes me out of it slightly because I see what the movie is going for, what it's trying to be, and I am just really kind of like hope given where the franchise goes and like the heights that it goes, because there's more heights than this. If this has been made in like other kind of age, another era of comic book movies, ironically, the era that it helped usher in, it could have been even more. It could have been like even higher.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I sometimes, I do wonder what it might have looked like had they had more time. I remember, because I think, like, production wise, this movie was really, they were really working within huge constraints. Like, I think they had like cut production time and like they had to deal with a budget cut last minute, and then I think, like, Hugh Jackman, like, I think he was cast maybe 2 days before they started shooting or something. So sometimes, like, yeah, like, you maybe, one can imagine that it would have been an even better movie had they had better, I don't know, better production circumstances.
Yes, definitely. And now, I guess on the character side, I do think that this movie kind of set the formula that like 90% of these films like at least the mainline ones take, which is Wolverine centric or Wolverine kind of honed, focused in on action plot, and then philosophical ramblings between Magneto and Professor X, and then everyone else is just playing second fiddle.
Um, can I just push back on that
Yeah,
a little
no
bit?
problem.
Because look, I'll be honest. Having rewatched them, I was actually surprised to realize, I don't think Wolverine is that centric to the first movie. Like, they don't even introduce him as like one of the first characters. I think he's like maybe the fifth major character they introduce, and even afterwards, like he's sort of like the core. Like I think he and Rogue are like the core of the first X-Men movie, but at the same time, there's still kind of an effort. There's still an effort to make this more of a team film. Like I don't
I
think
can't remember one thing Cyclops did other than go, "Don't push your luck, buddy. She's taken."
he blew off, the roof from the at the train station, and he gets to blast Sabretooth,
A
and
laser gun could have done all those things.
yeah, but he's he's more of a romantic rival more than anything, I guess. But I don't know. I still, I mean, I get like
He took my bike.
yeah, he took my bike. No, but I would still say, you do have an emphasis on the team. I think they do try to emphasize the team, and I wish they had done that more. But I don't think like Wolverine overwhelms the movie yet. Like I think that started kind of later, you know.
Oh yeah, no, I don't mean that he's like the central main character here, but he is definitely like one of the pivotal things in the action. Like he's always like Rogue. Obviously, isn't like big action fighter, so him kind of coupling with her in this plot is like just so that there is like someone who's always able to fight.
Oh, okay, yeah, and he does get like the lion's share of the action. Like the big battle is like he has the big fight with Mystique, and he's got like the big fight with Sabretooth, and so definitely action wise, he's always like kind of dominating like the screen, which is I would agree maybe to the detriment a little bit there. But I mean, he's like Hugh Jackman. I think and he's kind of a superstar. Like, the moment he appears on screen, he's kind of awesome. He really, for better or for worse.
Oh yeah, definitely. This was a star-making role, and I don't think anyone I don't think anyone disagrees that this is what made Wolverine was always cool. Everyone always agreed, but like this is like mass saturation of like public consciousness. Like we had the cartoon, and everyone thought Wolverine was cool in the cartoon, but there was so much stuff going on in the cartoon that could pull people's attention. But this made Wolverine, I think, undeniably forever etched as the lead, as the, and I feel like that's kind of a shame. But yeah, no, huge breakthrough hit.
Wait a minute. So to clarify, Wolverine wasn't kind of a leader figure in the comics
No, he
before?
always was. I'm saying that he was, but like who? Like again, like you have to kind of recognize that there's people who read comics, and then there's like the actual public.
Mm.
And I'm talking more about like the public that you can't really go back after this film.
Oh yeah, so he kind of becomes the face of the franchise,
Yes.
essentially.
So like when you hear like you don't hear people saying this guy should be Cyclops in the MCU.
Oh.
You keep saying who's going to be Wolverine in the MCU.
Okay.
No one cares. No one cares about who else is going to play Storm.
Oh well, yeah. I guess that's true. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, that's a good point. Okay. So regarding to my ranking.
Yeah. Just share your screen, and I'll put it up.
Okay. So then let me share screen, Chrome tab, and voila. Okay. So now I'm gonna, let's see, take the first. Oh wow, where is it? Like, okay, here's the first X-Men movie, and all right, putting it into the A rank.
Awesome. Right all right, cool. All right, we can stay on your. Let's do back and forth. So okay. X2, where would you put it?
X2. I also want to put it into the A rank level. Like I kind of feel that X2. I mean, having rewatched it, I think it's a flawed movie for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, but I would actually say it's relatively equal for me to the first one. Like it has kind of both higher highs and lower lows. And wow, where is X2 on the line here. Okay, here it is. I think. Here we go. X2. Because I think like it does some things better. Like I actually kind of like its action a bit more. And talking about that idea of making it a team effort. Oh, I still think like I think this movie even more so tries to give more stuff to other characters, which I really enjoy. So they break them up into teams. You've got like a whole subplot with like like Rogue and Bobby. You have like the Storm and Jean going on their mission. I kind of think it does a like a better job maybe even of balancing like the characters, maybe even so more so than the first movie. My main thing is that some of the stuff though it's a little overstuffed. It tries to maybe do a bit too much and doesn't always succeed. I would say also I think it has these weird tonal issues. Like it has these weird switches of tone. Like it feels sometimes like they try to pepper it with too many jokes. Like they have that whole segment where Wolverine, I think, accidentally like cuts a cat or something. Like it's like his claws cut a cat's tongue. So stuff like that. It's like they have what appear to be relatively serious,
Or like
dramatic
after,
moments.
or after like the mansion raid, and they turn on the radio, and it's Britney Spears.
Yeah,
Or in
yeah,
sync.
stuff.
It's in sync. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it feels just weird. It's like they're constantly inserting this weird jokey stuff into what is otherwise like a really good like serious maybe dramatic moment that kind of undermines it. You know, um, so that I do not like. I think the whole thing with Jason Stryker and like I mean I really like the villain. I think William Stryker is a really good villain here, but his whole thing it feels kind of rushed. Like I mean the whole thing with his son just feels like well wait a minute, so you're just going to do this one big expositional like dump there about why you kind of hate mutants and etc. And it feels like that whole area just feels completely underexplored and rushed. Like it should have had a lot more development there. um but as a whole I was really impressed with it. It actually for a while there I kind of ranked it kind of even lower right now, and now I'm like, well no, I think it's about equal to the first film.
No, I completely agree. I feel like you hit on the head where it has higher highs but lower lows, because like I will say this completely, that the film does try to be a lot more like dramatic, tries to be more cinematic, tries to be more thoughtful,
Hmm.
more philosophical, more ideological. It tries to really dig into the characters lot more into the themes. And it works, but also it makes the movie slow and plodding at times. Like I think it's the one of the first of like a lot of X-Men movie problems where they try to have like a very intricate plot,
Hmm.
but then like actual execution is just so stilted. Like and I enjoy. I think that again, like everything with Stryker, um, is just so magnificent. Like the way that Brian Cox bounces off like Hugh Jackman is just magnetic. He like even if the writing could be a little bit more subtle or more nuanced with Stryker, Brian Cox's performance just like shoots it over the moon.
Yeah,
It's magnificent.
he chews the scenery like really well, I think. you
Just
know
enough, just enough to make him like a memorable villain, but never too far where it makes his threatening presence laughable. You know,
yeah. Yeah,
uh,
he doesn't do like he doesn't go like so over the top like like I think Anthony Hopkins in the later Hannibal movies just really just overdoes it, and here I think Cox just kind of with his villain he really knows when to rein him in.
yes, exactly. Um, and yeah, I feel like if that was what the movie was really all like about entirely, it would be like an S tier. Like like it'd be perfect. But like we have so much divergences, we have so much like detours, and it feels like it doesn't know how to get from one set piece to another, which again is very emblematic of other films in this franchise, where like we have to like really do this really complicated, contrived way to get the characters where we need them to be, rather than having like a really sort of fleshed out story.
I think that's true. I also kind of feel that this is a movie that should be longer, like given all that they're attempting to do, like so they could maybe create like, smoother transitions from scene to scene or subplot to subplot or character to character, because it kind of like really just bounces around in a manner that maybe takes you out of the experience. And I like how they bring things together, but it's still sometimes it's just kind of like it feels like, okay, it feels like there is connective tissue missing, or it feels like there is emotional I guess development that's missing here or there between the different sequences and set pieces and so forth.
Definitely. And I feel like, yeah, again, there's so many ways that could be tying it up. I think that really holds it back because when you have a movie that, and it's a movie like 2 hours, right?
Yeah, like 2:15 maybe,
Yeah,
but
and I feel like it doesn't need to be that long. It really doesn't. Um, and I think that would really hold it back because, like, yeah, I think in the moment, like, there was nothing really like this, at least at this mainstream level. Like, you had this, you had Hulk, you had maybe Unbreakable, like they were like
mm,
pushing like the mold of like how far can we make this character drama, you know?
yeah.
And I feel like this is probably the most popular of those three, or at least in terms of, like big, widespread, mainstream, like at the time. But I think that's mainly because of the novelty. I feel like if this had come out today, I don't think it'd be as popular.
Probably not, but I also think like unlike those films, this was still sort of, this was trying to be like more outlandish. It was trying to be like more comic booky, entertainment. Whereas, I think like the, Unbreakable and Hulk in particular, they were really trying to make something quite different, although within the superhero genre. So I would say those two films really were ahead of its time, whereas like X-Men 2 probably was more of its time. Like it was just at that, I guess that kind of transitional point, when we were starting to get like more of that comic bookish, or rather we were seeing more of the Hollywood movie embracing comic book narratives. But anyway, definitely, I don't think it probably would have been as well received today. You know,
Yes, yes, completely. I can say that at least the climax kind of holds true. Again, even though it's a larger scale, the emotional beats of the climax of the finale still hold true. Like
oh, for
it's not something like Eternals or anything like that, where like, okay, we're doing something different, and then now let's just get back to basics. No, it's like this knows exactly what cards to play. Like just like let's kill all the human beings and he fucks off. Like that's bold. It's bold shit.
yeah. It feels like they really know how to like keep all the character stuff in the foreground here, which I really appreciate. You know, I mean, I think like maybe if there's something I don't like about the climax is maybe that the part where Jean sacrifices herself, and I think the way that she tries to she sends a message through the professor, and I think that moment always just kind of makes me laugh a little bit, because I don't know, something about the execution of that just I think I remember laughing even when I first saw it in the theater, because it kind of felt a little um, like I don't know. I don't think I like the way it was executed, and it still plays a little funnily to it's still a little funny to me. But like otherwise, I definitely think like I love how all the character stuff, all the emotional material holds how strong it is and how it's foregrounded.
Oh man, yeah. Um, but yeah, I feel like there's too much extraneous stuff. Like, did anything even matter of Lady Deathstrike? Like, it's just a cool kind of like, oh, it's a Bond sidekick, henchman, villain character, but it doesn't really mean anything. There's so much stuff that again could have been cut down. It's not something you think about unless the pacing and the story structure is tight, where you're going along for the ride, but the story structure isn't tight enough for you to ignore that, or for you to just sort of feel like that's part of the flow. There's no flow. It's like keep stopping and starting.
Well, yeah, I think though with Deathstrike, it's weird, but if you look at these early movies, there's this tendency, even up to I think First Class, it's like they tend to populate the films with all of these sort of background mutants, especially among the villains, and they have like no dialogue. Or almost no dialogue. Like they're just kind of these silent, strong, heavies. So it's kind of like at a certain point, yeah, they're gonna fight somebody, and that's it. And there's like no real emotional development there whatsoever. And I was really quite surprised. I mean, like, yeah, like Deathstrike, I think has maybe like one line of dialogue in the whole movie, and otherwise there's just no real character. Uh, and I kind of feel like, okay, I wouldn't say I think the movie should be shorter, but I would think it needs to be longer in order to really do justice to everything that it's trying to do. Or it should have been shorter, but like stuff like that should have been cut. So it should have either been more honed in, or by contrast, like more expanded.
I feel like it should have been. I feel like I'm in the middle ground where like it should have been this length, but it's focusing on too much of the unnecessary fringe. Like, do we really need this much like attention? Like, okay, okay, if you want to have like this little detour to like Iceman's house and show like a bit of this kind of internalized kind of like racism against mutants, like, which I think it's fun. I think it's fine. It shows that even his brother, like, just so prejudiced against him, he turns his own brother in, that kind of stuff. But then let's spend actual time there. Let's not just use that as a pit stop to have like 2 or 3 small gags and then just shuffle off.
No, I get that, and that I think is one of the challenges of trying to do a movie like this, where you want to ideally have enough subplots to do every single character justice, to make sure that they are there, like that they're there for a reason. Because they sometimes I like these films really do struggle with their with the cast. Like they struggle finding things for characters to do, in terms of plot function, in terms of character function. So yeah, so I'm kind of agreeing that it sometimes feels like, okay, they do this thing, and then it feels like it doesn't really, it's not big enough to matter. Like it's not maybe so small that you could cut it, but it's still not that significant. But I can kind of see that as part of the film's ambition. It really does want to try to service, it does want to service Iceman. It wants to service, Rogue and Pyro as well. It wants to do stuff, it wants like Rogue to, I mean, Rogue isn't in the center of the plot anymore, so she needs to have like her own thread, or something like that, which eventually dovetails into the other things.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like we could go on and on about the good stuff about it, but I think that's something that we all kind of regularly know. So I'm just gonna place it where I'm gonna place it. I'm gonna place it at the A as well.
Okay.
But I feel like we probably, if we want to go back to this later, we probably could. Let's move ahead. So I think it's gonna be easy. Let me take X3. Yeah, there we go. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
It's so bad. I had someone, a mutual of mine, Blackwing, if you're listening, I hope you don't mind, who was like, it's not as bad as Dark Phoenix. I'm like, no, that's underestimating how terrible X3 is. X3 is an abomination. We've talked about how like ineffectual and like how incompetent some aspects of X2 are. We're like, okay, this can be tying up. It's not as toned a story. The story structure is a little bit sloppy. The tone's a little bit sloppy. We've already said that. Now let's take all of that and take take away all of the good stuff, and we have X3. Oh, it feels like the first kind of blockbuster X-Men movie, And I know that X-Men and X-Men 2 are both blockbusters, but this feels like the most purpose-built to be a blockbuster, where it's just, it only cares about action, it only cares about laughs, it only cares about set pieces, it doesn't care about anything else. It is embarrassing.
Okay, so I would also place it into the D rank, but I will say that I don't think X3 is that bad. Like I completely get what you're saying, and I agree with a lot of that. But at the same time, I would say that it's relatively competent. I mean, it's competently made. Like, it's despite the fact that it has two
I agree.
stories.
It's a movie you can
Yeah.
watch with your eyes. I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, it has like, just having revisited it, like I never hated it when it came out, and even upon revisiting it, I'm like, well, it's like really mediocre, but it just is mediocre in that sense of, okay, there's kind of a story that you can follow. Like it has like really like two big stories that never really come together. But surprisingly, I would not call it a mess. Like I think it's still more or less coherent, just like one of the stories kind of vanishes into the ether, and I will say that it does have some of the character stuff that is
That
great in
that
the first few
that feels
films.
that feels more perfunctory than it feels like actually caring about it. Like you can have like the opening scene. Opening scene is probably the best part of the movie. Opening scene is the only good
No,
part
no,
of the
no. The
movie.
best part of the movie is actually the scene between Rogue and Wolverine when she's about to go off and get the cure. Like, I would argue that is the best scene in the movie.
Okay, but at that point, I'm like checked out.
Well, well, okay, but still, I'm
Okay,
telling you,
okay,
like I
wait,
watched that. It just stands out so much above
wait.
everything else. It's
I'll
like,
com- I'll compromise. I'll compromise. I'll say that the first scene is where the movie feels like it has potential.
okay,
Like, okay, I'll admit, I think that any of the movies, Wolverine and Rogue are probably the best part. But this is the first scene, the only part of the movie that feels like this could be on par with the first two films. Like it kind of lulls you into that false sense of security because you have this really harrowing scene of young Angel, and it's like this is like really really emotionally fraught. Like this is something.
yeah,
There's like some sort of like really deep character meat to this, and then we get nothing. We get just puns, jokes, wannabe action, and really lame hero villain dialogue. And then yes, of course, like we had the Wolverine scene with Rogue, and the dynamic between Anna Paquin and Hugh Jackman, it transcends the franchise. It does. Like it permeates the entirety of the franchise, even the films that it's not even an overt part of. Like
yeah.
it's the cornerstone.
Okay, I would agree with that. And honestly, I'm not fond of what they do with Rogue here because it just feels like,
Oh,
well,
it's bad. That's what I mean. Like a lot of stuff is perfunctory. Like almost
yeah.
like it's like okay, we need to have this in rather than like let's actually do something with it.
I mean, if you look at some of the alternate endings and everything that they have for the movie, it's cool. It seems like they really had very little idea of what to do with Rogue. It was kind of like, okay, there's one ending where she comes back and she's like, no, I couldn't go through with it. I am who I am. You should love me for who I am. And then they went with, no, I'm just gonna, yeah, I got the cure, and this was my choice. And I'm kind of like, I don't think I like either resolution, to be honest. But it just feels like, yeah, like they kind of didn't really know what to do with the character at this point. But I mean, I'm also kind of, I think maybe part of the thing for me is that I know that this had such a messed up production. It's you can see the potential, like in all of the things that they're doing. Like you can see how this could work. If they had the time to actually like do it properly, to actually write the film out and give it
Yeah,
like a good screenplay and everything.
I totally agree. My main thing on like ranking this the way I am is that they there was never any chance that they would care. Like okay, like with like X2, like okay, there's things that they could have really fleshed out, and I think that on some level the people behind it, the writers and all the crew would have wanted that to happen. But if anything, what I get the feeling from Brett Ratner and everything, who directed this one, they would have had less of that if they could. Like
Mm.
they would have actively worked against having any of that.
I don't know about Ratner. I do know, at least based on what I've gathered, this movie is probably, for the most part, it was kind of like the product of producer Tom Rothman. Because, like, at least like from everything I've gathered, Rothman, there was this whole protracted, contract negotiation with the cast and the crew after X2, and I think like there were disputes over maybe Bryan Singer's involvement, like how much he would get paid and stuff like that. And eventually, like Singer walked, and he takes on Superman. which ironically Brett Ratner was attached to before that. So then Rothman decides to, after slowing things down considerably, he decides to like just turbocharge the production and like and like get like a script ready maybe like within
They
like
cut out
2 months or
Cyclops. They
something.
cut out
That,
Cyclops
I,
in the
I
next
think that
movie.
okay, so I think that was actually due to the fact that James Marsden was contractually like they couldn't get him for like
I heard the
you know
opposite actually. I heard that like they could have scheduled around him, but they made the choice to write him out
oh
after he got cast in Superman Returns.
Okay, so maybe that's
Yep.
true. Maybe that's true because I mean it was kind of like there was apparently like this huge spat between Rothman and Singer, and I kind of suspect that maybe and indeed I would be inclined to believe this. Like if Rothman really thought that like Marston was on Singer's side or whatever, like maybe yeah, like they decided like he would put the stamp down to say no, you got to get rid of him, or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, it would be really bad though if that's like how it went, because I mean, you would think like, yeah, this would be the movie where Cyclops would legitimately have something to do, but ultimately, I hate I hate what they do with him. Honestly,
It's one of the reasons why Dark Phoenix is so much better. Oh my god, it's so much better. Cyclops is so good in that. Like
he is.
he doesn't get again. He's not like Mr. Action, but Dark Phoenix, he's part of the emotional core, He's part of the
Yeah.
emotional. That's what matters most. And this has no emotional core other than, of course, Rogue and all that stuff. Because like you have Magneto going, oh, in chess, you let the pawns go first. Like, what are you even talking about? What is this line? What is this dialogue? It's just generic villain dialogue.
Well, look, I would still say that for the most part, Magneto works. Like, I like though how there seems to be now this escalation. Like he's kind of becomes like they do stuff like some stuff in there. Like I think he shoots like an Al Qaeda terrorist video or something. About like announcing, okay, this was just like the first step in our attack and stuff like that. And I mean, he really like I think he mostly works for this film. Like you see a natural kind of escalation from him. Like he really builds up a whole army of mutants and like gets ready to take them into battle and stuff. And to me, like the stuff that he does in this movie is for the most part it's kind of believable, even though for his character, even though I mean, like I highly doubt like that, like the whole stuff that happens with Mystique, for example, just to me that's like, well, wait a minute, so you're just going to, okay, so she's a human now and she's gone, you're not going to accept her anymore, and that's and I can kind of see how, okay, that could be like a whole thing that you should explore, because like that's the thing that you just completely skip over, like on the character level. um so it's a very, I don't know, I think he mostly works, but then there's stuff there with him that doesn't work.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like any of the stuff that does work is only holdovers from the previous films that they couldn't get rid of, or they couldn't neglect without making it feel like a completely different character. Like it's a lot of the stuff that's good about this movie is only stuff they needed to handle, or that was set up, or that is embedded into the world that's been built since the first film. Because everything else is just so bog standard. It is like, oh, let's have a really funny action sequence, or like let's have a really wacky action. Let's have a wacky joke here. Let's have a wacky joke here. Let's have like one of the characters say, to war. I'm the Beast Man," like, or whatever Beast says in that ridiculous. Kelsey Grammer is so good, and I'm so glad he got like one other appearance in this franchise that wasn't embarrassing.
Did you ever see the deleted scene where he tries to do a Shakespearean, like he
Yes,
quotes Shakespeare?
I'm surprised I didn't make the final cut, because that's the kind of shit that would be in this movie.
I mean, yeah, it was just, I'm like, wow, that is, I'm so happy that they cut that. It was just like not cool.
A lot of this stuff, they reference memes. They reference memes in
Oh,
this
like with the
movie.
Juggernaut and
Yeah.
everything.
Oh my god.
Although the Juggernaut is kind of fun. I wish there was more of him in the movie. And as I remember, like I think he was kind of like a holdover from when Matthew Vaughn was briefly going to be the director. Like I think he brought over Vinnie Jones and created like the Juggernaut. Like he put the Juggernaut into the story just because I think he wanted to work with Vinnie Jones or something, And the Juggernaut here is kind of, I mean, I don't know. He's way too quippy and everything to be really menacing, but he is kind of fun. I really wish they had kept that extended fight between him and Wolverine in the movie, because if you watch the deleted stuff with between him and Wolverine, there's actually some stuff that it's actually kind of nice. Like they have a whole antagonism kind of brewing there, and the fight is kind of cooler. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. But it just weakens like the gravitas this franchise was kind of like building. So I don't know.
Definitely, like the tone is just not, I mean, it just feels like it's trying to be like this sort of blockbuster, we don't take ourselves seriously kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's disappointing. But want me to let's move over to you.
Yeah.
See where you put it.
Let's see. Definitely, definitely like at the like near the bottom. But although, hold on. Actually, can I?
Oh my God! Oh, we have a shakeup, huh? We're getting a shakeup.
Well, no. Look, I think just because there's like 13 films, and I kind of like rank them myself best, good, and mid to worst. And I kind of feel like this one would probably go relative to that, like maybe up a little bit. Yeah, like okay, sorry, sea level.
No problem. No problem. I can see that because there are others I would place lower than this.
Yeah.
But if by a hair, but still, there are others I would place lower than this by a hair.
Okay.
I understand that. But yeah, like we get Elliot Page as Shadowcat for the first time, which I think was also really good casting. I enjoy them in these films. I did. And I wish that the character of Shadowcat had more to do than just be like a secondary love interest. Like I feel like that's really big of a waste. I feel like the actors always been like always has like a really good screen presence, even in stuff like the Umbrella Academy, which I think is really terrible. Like I do enjoy their scenes.
Yeah. Well, I like the first season of that, but afterwards it was just like no.
It's so bad. I can't believe they made a fourth season. Like, why are they making a fourth? You could just ended it right there. You didn't need to. I get it. Okay, that's an ending. Let's not go. Let's not do any more. But whatever. And it feels like such a waste of the actor and of the character to like, okay, like let's just have Iceman and Rogue break up for like the most contrived reasons ever. Just to have these two to put together, and like you don't get enough time with the character or anything like that. So
to be honest, I'm not really, but they don't actually, I don't think they even technically break up. It's more like they kind of sort of have a fight or something. But definitely the Shadowcat character, the character does feel wasted. Although I will say I liked how Shadowcat was used in the climax. I think it's cool that Shadowcat is the one who saves the day ultimately, or at least she saves the kid, basically, like at the end of the movie. So that is like that was like a better use of that character than what had been in the film up to that moment.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. But as for anything else, I guess we could talk about Pyro, who was like one of the big things in the sequel, who gets like one line of like, "Oh, I'm evil fireman now. Let's fight, ice versus fire." Isn't that clever?
Wait. Though I will hold on. He does have that whole thing where he talks to Magneto, and he's like, I could have done that if that would have made you proud. I could have killed the professor for you. Like that was actually like I would say that was a good scene.
I don't know. I felt, and not, also because they recast, and so it's hard to like really get back into like feeling that's the same character.
No, but he was recast for the second movie, not the third one. Like it's Aaron Stanford in
really,
both. Yeah,
really. And they look. I don't know. He looks different.
I mean, he looks a little older, I think, and now like he's got like the stuff that allows him, like the
Oh yeah,
flamethrowers
yeah.
thing.
That's what really gets me. Like it's hard to relate because like you again, there was such a. It was nice to see like how kind of downplayed that was in the second film, like his
Mhm.
ability. Now they're like, okay, it loses that charm.
Um, I, I don't know. I remember he kind of stood out in the second movie. Like, he really just sets the fire. Like, like I mean, I remember like he really when he did his whole thing, and that's again in Bobby's subplot. But remember, he's the one who really tries to blow up all the cops. Although for some reason his fires don't seem to burn anybody.
Mm,
I don't know, ratings maybe couldn't be rated R, so we can't show people being immolated or whatever.
mm.
Um, but I remember, yeah, like I remember like his powers were really quite. If anything, I was actually kind of disappointed with how they used his powers here, because his powers in the second movie, like you actually they kind of demonstrated like the horror of what this character was capable of, and how he could use that offensively, and how and I think that's one reason why Magneto tells him, you're like a god among insects.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the second movie. I'm talking about the third movie. It's just like he feels so much more flat.
Yeah, yeah, because he doesn't really have much to do,
Exactly.
really.
That's more what I mean. Because like it feels like it's hardly for the same character because it's so much more hollow. When that was like a really big kind of part of the how the theme works in the second movie.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, definitely. It was a downgrade in any case.
Yeah,
I would say he's just kind of there, He's just kind of there, but he's not really like centering anything. I don't know.
yeah. But there's not really anything I want to talk about. Like we could talk about like oh it's like half the cure storyline, all that kind of stuff. But like it's all just fodder to me. Like none of that means anything. Like it doesn't even mean anything moving forward
Mm.
into the franchise. It's a big flat blah. Like okay, it's the end of the Last Stand, the end of the X-Men trilogy. We're
The
going against the cure, a cure of mutants. Like that seems like a interesting plot to tackle, but then again, it feels like okay, now let's have them fight on the Golden Gate Bridge. Like
Well, look, I would say this. You can see, though, how the cure should have been the main plot of this movie, like how it should have been the thing that really creates this whole, I mean, I think I can see how in concept this could be pretty good. Like the cure creates a huge division, among all the mutants. It creates these divisions among the X-Men. Like the X-Men themselves are kind of, it's like a house divided now, and they cannot stand together, you know? And in the end, like they do have to stand together in order to, I guess, protect the kid and maybe protect the world or something. But
oh my god, I totally forgot until you said like wait, what does he mean the main plot? Is there a second plot? I
yeah,
forgot. I forgot Jean Grey was in this movie. I forgot because she
yeah,
matters nothing.
yeah,
She
that's
does
that's
nothing. She does nothing except like kill off characters they don't want to write anymore.
yeah, that's true. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, Jean Grey is a complete failure here. I would say the Cure, in any case, it sort of functions as like an umbrella, plot around which a lot of the incident revolves. But and I think and I think like I can see it being like a good plot in a movie that was like all about the Cure and how the Cure divides, like all the characters and everything. But and it's so I think it matters in that degree, or it was supposed to matter, but because of everything else that they have to have happen here, it just kind of it ultimately doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Um, let's talk about Jean Grey for a little bit. Like we already talked about like how they totally screwed over James Marsden.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel so bad for Jean Grey's actress.
Famke Janssen.
Famke Janssen, yeah. Because like all she does is just stare menacingly and growl the
Well,
entire film.
okay, well, I would say that's true for the second half of it. She does have some more material in the first half where it's like, there's the whole seduction thing with first Scott and then Wolverine. And there's this thing where, and I kind of think it's cool that they let her play that up. I mean, she really like goes all in on that, and that kind of over the top, I guess, like kind of, I don't know, ego unleashed, or the animalistic side unleashed kind of personality, I guess. So I thought that was cool, but then in the second half of the movie, after doing what she does with Professor X, it's like she has nothing, like nothing to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like there's no emotion to that. There's no purpose to that. There's no theme to it. It just feels like, okay, we have to do something with Phoenix because the second one we set that up. And okay,
Mm.
we have these two characters. We don't want to write anymore. The actor's doing something else. Let's just use her. And then they did, and like, okay, now we need to wrap this up. And so they wrapped it up.
Yeah, I will say that it kind of, just watching the movie, I was wondering. I'm like, well, wait a minute, why does Magneto need to move the bridge or whatever? Like, why does he even need his army when Phoenix is like right there? Like, he never even tries to, like, he should have, like, maybe, okay, Jean, can you go, like, and destroy, like, the cure facility, and maybe she would go, oh, okay, and then she destroys the facility and then the movie's over. And but also I was just wondering how there was never even an attempt, I think, like, nobody brings up the idea of maybe, hey, maybe we can cure Jean, like maybe we can use the cure on her and this will all go
Oh
away and
yeah,
she'll be.
yeah. I was gonna think about that too because like that would more an interesting ending than what they did with like, oh, Wolverine's got a Shanker because like it makes he's got a Shanker.
I'm surprised. Like, I'm asking myself, wait, how does that even kill her? I mean, she was already submerged in water and everything. I mean, the pressure alone and everything. But all he has to do is stab her in the stomach like once, and she's dead. I mean, it's kind of that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. They didn't care. They only had it was only in the movie because it had to be.
Hmm.
But yeah, let's talk about the final post credit scene, which I didn't know existed until I was like
Oh, really?
18. I didn't know it existed until like 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it was. Well, yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, it's there. I guess it's their way of maybe suggesting, like, oh no, like, the character will continue. It's really weird though. It's kind of, I'm like wondering if the consequent, like, you have to ask, well, wait a minute, why did he, like, isn't this kind of immoral, for him to do something like that? And I don't know. They kind of bring that up in the beginning, and it's like they're talking about what would be the ethics of transferring your mind into another person's body or something, and then
Yeah.
that's exactly what he does. And I'm like, I'm not sure what the big takeaway from that was supposed to be. You know?
Thankfully, Days of Future Past ignores that. Other than like, okay, he has another body. It must have been a complete twin. Well, that's the funny thing, right? Everyone thought it was like a twin, and then like
Yeah.
I think Kinberg or someone said like, oh no, it's actually like Xavier found a shape shifting mutant that could shape shift his face to like his old face.
Wait. Really? He said that it was a shape shifting mutant that
No, no,
he.
no, no, no. Like it was, he found a mutant that could shape shift other people's looks, not themselves, but like they could. They
Oh,
rearranged his new body to look like his old body. But like it's funny that when Days of Past was announced, everyone thought, oh, the body at the end of the comatose guy at the end of the third movie must have been a twin. But like, no, it's not. It's just even more ridiculous explanation that never comes up in the actual movie.
I've never heard about that part where he. So he supposed to. So he found a mutant who shape shifted him,
Yeah.
into his old body.
Yes,
And
like because this comatose body was not a twin. So in order to get Patrick Stewart back, this is something that one of the screenwriters said in an interview. It's not in the movie, but
I've never read that. I've never heard of that. That's
it's
actually
crazy.
that's new to me. That's
It's
well,
crazy.
yeah, that's even more insane, honestly.
Like I feel like everyone is like, it's just a twin. It's not. Just ignore that. It's a
Well, but
twin.
didn't they, like, say on the commentary track for the movie that it was supposed to be a twin at the time?
Yeah, exactly. That's what everyone thought. But then it's like one of the writers like, nah, man. He found a mutant that ability was to change other people's
Oh,
appearances.
wow. Okay, no, I was not aware of that. But honestly, I'm kind of glad that never made it into, whatever future we consider canon
Yeah.
after this, because that would have been just, it's like one of those things where, yeah, I don't think, like, they should get into that, to be honest. That's just
No.
too much.
All right. But let's move ahead. Next up is Wolverine Origins. So where would you put that? It's your turn.
Okay, so in my opinion, X-Men Origins is wait, where is the Origins
Oh,
film?
I forgot Origins. Jesus Christ, I forgot Origins. I
Oh,
had it. I forgot it.
oh, well,
Missed
um,
me. Can I add anything?
I don't know. Well, I could talk about it
Yeah,
while you look for it.
let me make a new one, and then while you talk about it, I'll send it to you. I'll send you a link, and you can share that.
Okay, sure. So do I close my
No, just keep talking about it. I'll
yeah.
send you a new link.
Okay, so Origins is so I ranked on my own personal listing, I kind of ranked them, from best to worst, and Origins is number 13 for me. Origins is like right there down at the bottom of the pile, so it would be in the D, like level, like all the way, it's like the bottom of the D, you know. Um, and in my opinion, yeah, it is like the worst X-Men film, hands down. Because I mean, I don't know, it's a mess. It's very, it's a mess that just does not work on a lot of levels. The plot just has a lot of holes. The tone is all over the place. Um, like I think again, it's a movie that has some interesting ideas, but it's just none of those ideas I think are ever really explored to a meaningful extent. And ultimately, I don't like what it. I don't like. I don't think it really adds anything to the character. Ultimately, like I think if anything, it arguably makes the whole mythology, that the whole mystery that they developed with Wolverine kind of. I mean, for one thing, it contradicts some of that. It just directly contradicts some of that material that was established in the second movie, especially. But more than that, it just doesn't feel like it should have been told. Like there was no real necessity in telling this particular iteration of the story. Like I mean, like I don't know, I really don't like it. It's I mean, we can talk about like the different things, the weird choices that it makes. I guess I kind of like Leaf Schreiber. Maybe I think Schreiber plays this incarnation of Victor Creed, who is not Sabretooth, kind of well. But otherwise, it's just hard for me to come up with things about this movie that I think are good. I mean, sometimes you watch that, and even some of like the claw effects look really shoddy. You know, like that scene where he's in the bathroom and he's sort of like he sort of has his claws, his metal claws, like for the first time, and that seemed like a good moment. But then it's like the claws just look so bad in that scene that kind of takes you out of that. So I kind of like to think that this is the one movie that I sort of wish, or at least for a while, I wish that this movie did not exist in the X-Men franchise. I will say that in hindsight, though, in hindsight, it plays a little bit better because of what
Oh my
Deadpool does.
god. Oh my
Uh,
god, it's insane. Every time every time you say but, I'm like, oh my god.
okay, but, okay, but
Anyway, I sent
yeah,
you the new link. So if you want to reshare your screen, I sent you the new link.
okay, let me see. Uh, okay, so doing that, let's see. Okay, closing the old one, and okay, doing share screen, and create share. Oh, okay. So
What,
where
yeah.
is the?
Well, you just put your other ones where you put them.
Oh, okay. I have to try to. Okay, well, let me just put this one for now here, and I'll put the other ones back. So basically, look, so what I am saying is that I would say that for a long time I wish this movie did not exist, but then after Deadpool and especially Deadpool 2 came out, I'm kind of glad that it exists because Deadpool could make fun of it.
Oh yeah, no, I guess I agree, and I think that I appreciate that like X-Men 3 exists because like it leads to the Wolverine, which is one of my favorites. Spoiler: the Wolverine's one of my favorites. Um,
Oh, the Wolverine,
the
like the
Wolverine, yeah.
second. The
This the
titles are the titles are so weird.
what a franchise.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's definitely flawed. Um, again, I think that there are stuff to like about it. But I think that all the stuff that it does well carries over into other films. Like, even if you like the Deadpool stuff, I think the Deadpool movies do like this really great job of taking every single scene that was in these and then just reshooting the scenes for the Deadpool films. They do because like they do like all the stuff you can do like a comparison side by side of all the stuff that like that Wade does in X-Men Origin Wolverine, and there is another equivalent scene in either Deadpool 1 or Deadpool 2.
I only noticed that like with the katana stuff,
Yeah,
maybe, but
like where he like in the Deadpool 2 where he does like the katana slayed in half. The movements are exactly the same.
yeah.
But also, okay, so there was this promo um, character spot for X-Men Origins Wolverine, right? And I guess they must have had like a couple of them, but I only ever saw the Deadpool one. And then you have like Wade Wilson, regular Wade Wilson saying, like, "Oh, I always wanted to travel the world and go to different places and kill people in them." And like it's for Origins Wolverine, right? And then they reuse that for the first Deadpool movie. They take that dialogue verbatim.
Oh, I did not know that. That's actually kind of cool.
And I think that's so good because like okay, I think that again it speaks to Ryan Reynolds really loving the character, but also being like not wanting to throw away the kid with the trash, Like
Mm,
he's not wanting to throw away all the stuff that worked, and there is stuff that about Deadpool that works. So I'm glad he salvaged what he could. Liev Schreiber is also I think really entertaining, and that's it. Nothing else in
yeah,
the movie works.
yeah. I mean,
Oh, it's 3 Mile Island. Who cares? Who cares that it's 3 Mile Island? None
um,
of that means anything.
I mean, history, maybe. I don't know. I guess it's kind of ties into them trying to do stuff with historical events, with like real life historical events or whatever. But
It feels too flimsy a connection.
uh, yeah, it's weird, I mean, the previous movies already kind of told you more or less like what happened there, and I just find it weird how this movie goes out of its way to retcon that stuff.
Oh yeah, like because like the torture he undergoes isn't like actually anything explicit. It doesn't feel you don't feel it doesn't feel as impactful, and also Stryker is just really ineffectual.
Yeah, like I mean, the Striker in this movie. I mean, I'm kind of glad that they recast Stryker because I think this movie is actually trying to okay, we're in the past where like whatever, so Stryker should look different and stuff. Yeah, but he doesn't. I don't think he has like much of anything to do here. He's nowhere near as charismatic or interesting
They
as he
really
was.
dial back his character. Yeah, I think the only other thing that works in this movie is the X-Men Origins part. Like,
Oh,
I do like it. I do like that it's goofy. It should not be in the movie. It has no purpose at all. I have no idea what it adds to. But like, okay, I
oh
like this.
God.
I like this stuff with Scott at his school. I like that. It's wild. It's wacky. It's fun.
Uh,
I do
People,
like. I don't know what I do like when they're all being trapped and they all wearing like the jumpsuits, like prison jumpsuits, and that they're led up. He's like, "Oh, I hear something in my head. He's telling us to go this way," and it's the Professor X saving their
it,
asses.
well, see, I kind of hate that stuff because it's just it's already like the continuity is already kind of problematic but it's kind of like why are you going out of your way to make all of these connections and shoehorn characters who shouldn't be there into the movie? I mean,
Oh yeah, no, I
you,
agree. They shouldn't be in the film, but I like how it's executed in solitary.
hmm.
Like if this had been its own movie, I wouldn't mind.
I mean, I guess maybe, but I mean, I guess yeah, because the movie is kind of almost in two parts already, right? Like the whole second half after he gets his after he gets his adamantium, that like becomes a movie into itself, right? In and of itself, and I mean, I suppose, but I still don't like that. I mean, I remember, they even had those scenes. They even shot scenes with like a kid's storm like showing up every once in a while, and I'm just like, oh my god, please, thank you for cutting it. Like it should not be there at all.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But then nothing else in the movie works. The action is laughable. The storytelling is ridiculous. Like, do we really need to give him like this really like schlocky, stereotypical, like, oh, you're called the Wolverine because of the ancient magical mystics? Like, we don't. None of that matters. None of that needs to be in the movie, and it's borderline too ridiculously overly mystical for that culture. Honestly, like
Hmm.
he's called Wolverine because he's short and he scratches. All right, that's all we need to
Well,
know.
well, he's kind of like a wolf, you know. I mean, he has got like, you know, his hair, his senses, and everything. His animalistic, you
Well,
know.
Wolverine is like a badger, though. Like a Wolverine is like a badger.
I know, but I guess I don't know. I always sort of saw the name
Oh
as
my
being
Oh my
like
God, I forgot how the movie opens. The movie opens in the most hilarious way, where like kid Wolverine kills his dad. Like no, like he's wearing like a sleeping robe. Like this is the most ridiculous shot.
oh
Okay, now here's another thing. Opening
yeah it
credits intro is really good.
but you know that's another thing that I'm like I would I would really appreciate it if you guys actually told some story there. Like, why do you just compress like to me that's a very interesting part of the movie, and it's all done in a montage. Like you could build like
Exactly.
a whole movie of these two brothers, you know, over the years, like, you know, going through like wars for some reason. I don't know why they're even in these wars, and you know, maybe them, like one of them grows to be like less and less human over time, and eventually that's like why their relationship falls apart or something. Like I think that would be an interesting story to tell. And yeah, it is a cool montage, but you compress maybe the most interesting stuff in the movie down to, what was it, like 3 minutes or something.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, none of the other stuff in this movie works at all. Um, Unfortunately, like I said,
Yeah.
all the good stuff is either carried through to other sequels or retrofitted for other spin-offs. Let's move along. Let me share my screen,
Yeah.
and that way I can put this where it belongs, right next there, D rank. All right, next one is First Class.
Ah, okay.
And I'm gonna be controversial. Terrible movie. I
Mm,
hate it. I hate it. I don't like it at all. I the only good things about it, I think C is like okay, and I don't think this is okay. Movie. I just hate it so much. I can't stand it. It's unbearable. Yes,
mm,
yes, McAvoy and Fassbender give good performances, but they're giving good performances to really terrible stuff. Like yes, okay, the impact of like the whole Nazi hunting stuff and like his dynamic with Shaw, really good. Everything else in the movie drags it down. Like everything else about that whole like, oh, aren't we the cool '60s mods? You know, like it's unbearable. Like, oh, let's have a montage where like we're drinking and like dancing to the '60s hits. We're swinging. Terrible. Oh, so bad.
wow.
I just
Wow.
can't stand. I just can't stand it.
I'm surprised. I mean, like I think there's a, you know, I remember at the time it came out, like I think everybody was really high on it, and it's like, you know, oh wow, yeah, this is like one of the best X-Men movies. This is like a real, you know, return for the franchise. And I guess I kind of thought that as well. And then over the years, my impression of it kind of cooled. And I realized, you know, for one thing, I really don't like the music in this film. It's like, you know, the best theme that
So
they have,
overbearing. It's so overbearing.
yeah, it's just so like over the top, and it's so loud, and it's kind of like the main theme, and every time it's on I'm just like, oh god, I'm not feeling well, like just from hearing it, you know. I mean, you know, they actually do have a good theme in the trailer. I remember the trailer music was awesome, you know, but then that's not in the movie, which surprises me, you know, to this day. But
I think, yeah, I think that it really wants to be self-awareingly goofy, and I think that's to a detriment. I know
mm,
like there was this whole thing where it was meant to be like a reboot, like a clean reboot. Like
th-
they were on the fence. They were on the
yeah,
fence. Like they thought, okay, we need a familiar face. So like they brought in Hugh Jackman, but they were still like, okay, this could be a complete reboot. Like,
They also brought in Rebecca Romaine. She makes like a cameo when
yeah.
like Mystique like tries to look older.
So that brings up a question. Like, did she age in the original ones, or did she just become Rebecca Romaine?
Yeah. Well, they do. Here's the thing. This is maybe the only X-Men movie that actually this openly discusses like how mutants age. So like when Shaw first appears, he's like, when he reveals his power, he's like, "Yeah, I absorb energy. It keeps me young." And then, Hank is like, like there's something about your genes. It's like you age like at half the rate of a normal human.
But that's only
So
them because for those it makes sense. But like, why does Nicholas Holt like stay forever 21?
I, I I don't know. The thing is that I remember reading interviews with the producers, and I think at a certain point they just said, I think they say, at some point we just decided, well, they don't age that much because they're mutants. That's they're mutants, so mutants age differently or
Makes
whatever.
sense. I agree. All right, but you know what? I was I was too harsh because I mentioned Nicholas Holt and I like Nicholas Holt a lot. I,
I Oh, look,
Nicholas Holt is like the only good thing about this movie that isn't
you,
dependent on something else.
so you don't like Mystique and her new dynamic here? I mean,
No, I do. I don't. I feel like I would have liked it more if that was like more fleshed out. But it's so facile. It's so
hmm,
it's so okay. She wants to be accepted as a mutant. Okay, okay, that's it. That's all that happens. There's not really anything. I don't buy her and like and McAvoy's dynamic and relationship. I buy it in later films where you're able to kind of dig into it more, where they
hmm.
sort of like have more back to back, and it's like, oh, my dear lovely sister, like I don't what I don't know. I don't you. Why does she have a British accent? Like
um,
she lived in Britain for like 20 years, right?
I have never actually thought of that. I mean, but we don't know. We don't know where she's been living. It's like the idea was that she
But
was,
she but
I
but
guess,
since she was like 6 though, right?
I,
They
well,
are in Britain. He's in Britain, right? When
I mean, maybe she was 12. Like she's supposed to age at twice, twice as slow or something, isn't she?
why
So,
didn't she speak Russian-y?
I, I don't know. Okay. I have never thought of that. Okay,
But
I've never
it's
thought.
stuff like that, like where it feels like very surface level. It's like
Oh,
it's not
okay,
about
but,
stuff.
but but I don't know. I mean, sometimes they all have accents that like kind of show up and disappear. Like I think Magneto has an accent in this one, like in the old movies, in the initial timeline films, like Rogue has an accent that shows up and vanishes, depending on what scene she's in. So I guess to me that was never distracting. I guess
Well, it's not distracting, but it's more the stuff like where there's not less time put into like making this feel like an actual brother sister relationship, which this entire plot hinges on, at least for Mystique and her character arc.
yeah.
I never buy it. I never buy it, and they don't really spend too much time on it because it wants to be fun, it wants to be light, it wants to be poppy,
Okay.
and like it's not. It detracts a lot because it also wants to like have some pathos. Like it
I,
recreates the opening scene from the first movie, like almost
yeah.
exactly. And like, okay, earn that, and it never does.
Okay. No, no, I get that. I mean, I don't know. I've never thought of their relationship as not working, but I guess they don't really explore it that well. It's more or less it's just kind of a thing that happens at the outset, and then they kind of, it just sort of like just completely fades into the background. But I would say that I mean, I like the new Mystique. I like that now she feels like a character. She actually has dialogue. She has, she interacts with everybody. Like
I like
she,
Mystique. I like Mystique in the sequels. I think that that
Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence. I was gonna say Jennifer. Did I get Jennifer wrong? No, Jennifer Lawrence. Um, people always say like, oh, she stopped caring about the character as the sequels went on. Might be true. Might be true. But her performance and the writing for her got better as the series went on. Like
Oh,
I like her so much in Mystery Pass. I like her even more in Apocalypse. I like her so much in Dark Phoenix.
yeah. I no, I agree with that. I think maybe I think from what I recall, she really just didn't like the the makeup process for Mystique, which is why they sort of had to sometimes like write around that and like give her more reasons to be in her natural Jennifer Lawrence form. I think maybe that's why she and also I bet she probably did not like Bryan Singer as well, because I like if you like, because I was really surprised. It turns out like the main cast kind of came back for Dark Phoenix apparently, or as they claim, they came back mostly because Simon Kinberg convinced them to come back. Like he was going to write and direct this, and they were like, okay, if you're in it, we'll do it as well. um uh I don't know, but I will just say that at least I like Mystique more so in these films because she feels at least like more fleshed out. She does have, she has like that whole romantic subplot with Beast, which I
But
think plays well.
Beast walks away with that a lot better.
Okay.
Beast has more nuance to his character than Jennifer Lawrence does, unfortunately. Or
Okay.
like he's been living this lie, and I believe more that he's been living this lie because he's so much more proactive. The character is so much more dynamic with that plot. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Mystique, it's like, should I sleep with Magneto or Beast? It's so
Yeah.
bland, it's so dull, and
Uh,
and poor Moira is left on the roadside in
I,
shambles.
I will say that I really don't like how they pushed her out of the actual climax, because towards the end of the movie, when they have the big fight with the Hellfire Club, it's like I want to go out there. No, 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 look, you just stay in here. And then she's like, shit, and all she does, I think, is she later uh, saves Hank by turning into Shaw. But I'm just like, it feels weird. Could they not find anything for her to actually do to contribute to this big battle scene or something?
Definitely.
So that I really, yeah, so that I definitely didn't like. But let me say this: I will say that for all of the, and look, I definitely want to bring back some of that other stuff you were talking about. That I think this movie's tone is all over the place.
Yes.
Like, yeah, like it just, because it tends to just go weirdly from having this dark subject matter, with Shaw and like the torture and everything. I mean, it sometimes feels like Magneto is in his own movie, like he has like, there's this really dark Magneto, Magneto's revenge film like playing out alongside some of this other stuff, and it just doesn't mesh very well. They have all these weird party sequences, and it feels like it's stuff from a different movie. It feels like it's a very different, tone and style there. And it just like, I'm like, okay, this stuff is good in and of itself, but then you're putting it right in between like all this dark stuff, like, one second it's like the mutants are partying, like they're being teenagers and having fun and they're really letting loose, and then the next second like Shaw comes in and everything just suddenly turns gravely serious. And I mean, I think clashing tones can be a good thing, but you really have to know how to really make that work for you. And I don't think it works that well here.
I mean, I think what happened is that that's probably a byproduct of this being basically the last two entries in the X-Men Origins trilogy smashed into one movie.
Hmm.
Because
So,
originally X-Men Origins, like that was a banner for X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was meant to be a
yeah,
trilogy
like,
of movies. It was meant
yeah, I
X-Men
remember there was
Origins,
supposed
yeah.
yeah, I
X-Men
remember there was
Origins.
supposed to be like X-Men Origins Magneto and then some unannounced third film or something.
I'm pretty sure it was meant to be X-Men Origins Professor X.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Because
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it'd be supposed to be those three. Um, and that makes the most sense because I feel like you have, well, basically they've admitted, or someone's talked about behind the production, that X-Men, all the Magneto stuff was lifted directly from the canceled X-Men Origins Magneto movie. Like all the
oh,
Nazi stuff, all like his trauma, like him going around getting revenge, that was entirely verbatim. So I think that the X-Men Origins Professor X, which I think I heard was going to be it, I don't know, I might be wrong, was going to be like this fun caper with Professor X, and I think
oh,
that's probably why this has so much thing, because you have Moira Taggart, who is Professor X's love interest, who was really indebted, who was really into that like super spy kind of stuff, and this is like a Bond film. Like he's like
yeah,
Shaw's like a Bond villain, and he's got like a femme fatale. He's got his outrageous henchman, the big heavy henchman Azazel.
yeah.
Um, And I feel like that probably would have been the Professor X plot, where like he's getting in bed with the CIA because of his love interest and all that kind of shit. And I feel like that's really where this clashes. It's two films mashed into one, and then also possibly a reboot.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, I remember, reading about X-Men Origins Magneto, and I always thought like, okay, it seems like that they've decided to scrap that. I think like I even, you know, um, Brian Singer even mentioned that once, like how it was a way of returning to these like lost idea. But I never knew that the third Origins movie was supposed to be about Xavier. Like I assumed that Xavier would be in the Magneto movie because
No, I heard that was going to be like just very strictly about Magneto getting revenge on Nazis.
hmm, like I think though, but weren't there like reports they said like, oh, Xavier is going to meet him in X-Men Origins Magneto because he's a soldier or something.
Really?
Like
I'm looking it up right now. X-Men Origins Magneto.
yeah, like and it was supposed. I think it was supposed to tie into the idea that like he mentions that they first met when he was like 17 years old, and so I remember reading that he was supposed to show up in Origins Magneto as like a soldier in like the war or
Oh,
something.
yes, he did say that. Okay, but he makes Xavier a young soldier during the liberation of the camp, and then he again that might have been it might have just been a cameo, because it says that the plot would still have been him hunting down Nazi criminals.
Ah, okay. Well, I don't know. Yeah, but that would explain like a lot of things because if anything, I think that the Magneto side of this movie works. Like I think that's I love Michael Fassbender in this role in like what he brings to it. And I mean, come on, like the ending where he like where he uses the coin to literally kill to move it
Oh
to
yeah, yeah.
Shaw's head. Like that was so awesome. That's such a great payoff.
So yeah, it says here directly that X-Men producer Lauren Schuler Donner stated that they included direct pages from the script into first class,
Wow.
so that they literally just copy and pasted possibly entirely his entire plot and subplot and scenes into first class.
Wow.
I would have want I would X-Men Origins Magneto could have been so good then. It could have been
Yeah.
perfect. It could have been really good.
Yeah, I mean, watching this movie, you get the sense that, yeah, this is, I mean, I really think, if anything, it's probably the most confident part of the story, or at least it's told in the most confident way,
Yeah.
but everything else, yeah, I mean, there are things, though, that I do like in and of them, I mean, I like some of I mean, I do like the other characters. I do like, I I do like,
You can't
I do
name them.
like
You can't name them because they're non-characters.
No, I like. I mean, I mean to say that I like McAvoy.
Oh,
I like Havoc. Actually, I kind of like Havoc. I mean, he doesn't have much to do, and I mean, the other mutants, unfortunately, they're very much bit players. Like they're
yeah.
those. Again, it's like a bunch of silent heavies, and then
Poor
you know,
Darwin.
yeah, yeah, that was like a real shame right there. I guess they kind of had to kill off somebody, but even the way that plays out, I was just like, I'm not sure what's really happening in that sequence. Like, I'm not sure. Wait, how does Shaw stop him again? And then, like, what? And then Angel like stops being a character at that point for no reason. And then, I'm not sure like what's actually happening in that sequence, like right there. But uh, but that was okay. I guess I will say this: I enjoy seeing them build the team. Like I like the team building. Okay, even though it belongs in another movie, I kind of like that. And what can I say? The cast is great.
The
Okay, I
cast
will
is
say.
good. Like I said, like McAvoy, Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence ends up being like one of my favorite parts of the franchise moving forward. Holt is really good. Uh, just yeah, the story and the tone and the fickleness of like itself is just it's too much to bear.
Yeah, I mean, it really bothers me that, some people are referring to this as maybe the best X-Men movie because it is the most comic booky. It is like the one that's like most, trying to get that fun tone, like that sort of, I don't know, that sort of comic booky outlandishness going. And I'm like, I'm not sure that makes it like the best.
I
It just,
hate I hate that that kind of argument so much. You see that a lot with like TV shows and especially CW. Where like, oh, but they took it direct from the comics. That doesn't matter. When you're making a movie, you have to go for what works in a movie. Now, sometimes I'm a purist, but I'm only a purist when you change something in an adaptation and don't replace it with anything as good. And I'd say X-Men 1, X-Men 2, they stripped away a lot what probably some of the more kind of purist kind of fans enjoy. But in my mind, they replaced it with stuff that was just as good or almost as good. And that's what matters when you're doing this kind of thing. First Class, it doesn't even reach that bar.
Well, even though Magneto works, though, right?
Magneto worked. Magneto was the best part of the movie. And I want to say right now, X-Men Origins Magneto would have been one of the best movies in this franchise had it been made.
Oh, well, all right. I mean, that's fair. You know, I still, yeah, I definitely don't. I mean, I wouldn't rank it that low. Like I said, it's right there in the middle for me. It's like literally movie number 7 because I think it's not that.
Let's go to yours, and then you can place it.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah,
Ooh,
so yep,
that
right
high,
there.
as
Well,
good.
Well, yeah, I would say it's right there in the middle. So I'm including it in the good, you know, like in the good category. So I would say it's good. It's not. I would say it has enough good in it, like for me to qualify as right there in the middle. And you know, because we have like I mean, there are like 5 rankings here, so it just happens to fall onto the B. You know, but I would probably grade it maybe like a B minus, something like that. You know, yeah. One thing I will say is I really like the ending of this film.
No, it's really good.
Yeah, and I love the setups that it has, which unfortunately would not carry over.
I'm glad it didn't carry over.
Really?
Mainly, yeah, I just thought the Brotherhood of Evil was so lackluster in this movie. I didn't want to see any more of them.
Well, they had the Hellfire Club, and now they would have Magneto's Brotherhood. You know, I mean,
Oh, you know, I mean, the Hellfire Club or whatever. And I don't want to see like at that point of like, I want to keep. Days of Future Past did the perfect thing to me. Kept what was good and then junked the rest.
Okay. No, I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, I'm just like, well, come on. I mean, you know, you have Magneto showing up in his red suit, and it's kind of like Emma Frost is supposed to get more stuff to do. You know, it's kind of like it's like the ending was like such a clear setup for what was gonna be like the next big conflict there, you know, and I was like, yeah, I want to see Magneto do something with JFK and like maybe them having another face off in the 60s. Like I really wanted to see like I think there was room for improvement, you know, like they could have explored some of those ancillary characters more. Like I remember reading somewhere that one of the reasons I think Mystique ends up on Magneto's team, at least in part, is what's, you know, like they wanted to get her together with Azazel. Like, you know, they wanted to maybe develop that relationship because, you know, because Mystique and Azazel are supposed to be, I guess, Kurt's parents.
Yeah.
You know,
and that could have been interesting to explore. And I was kind of hoping they would have a little bit, but then they kind of compromised a little bit. I mean, like trying to make this theme about all mutants that are blue having some shared lineage. Like I think that's part of, like they really make a point of pointing out whenever someone's blue in X-Men Apocalypse. And like, are they trying to say that like they're possibly both descendants of Apocalypse?
I never got that impression. I was just like, you know,
or they're trying to make some sort of thematic about like, I don't know, the importance of blue in mutanthood, because like they pointed out like a fair bit.
I don't know. My impression was that like they put Mystique and Nightcrawler in the same movie, and these two have like no familiar. I'm just like, why? It's like the second time you're having another opportunity. It's again, no, they're not related. Like we don't get any real exploration of that possibility of them being related. Like, you know, nothing is brought up.
Let's save that for when we get to Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is the Wolverine, which I was surprised by. Like, really, the Wolverine came after Exit First Class, the supposed reboot. But let's see, where'd you put it? Your turn.
Yeah. Okay. So
also, do you think theatrical or extended?
You know, I actually go with the extended because I think the extended cut is like really that should have been the theatrical cut.
I agree.
Or at least it accomplishes far more of what it sets out to do. So here's the thing. The Wolverine for me is actually above The Last Stand, but it's also in, even in its director's cut, it's still in this level.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm just, because to
You're a
me,
madman.
no, well, maybe, I don't know. I like some of the stuff in the Wolverine, but it's also like another movie that I think it's like two different movies at one in one. Like, I mean, they're kind of trying to do this. I like some of that stuff. Like, I just don't think a lot of what it's doing just meshes together that well, because it
All
seems
right.
like they have these two different storylines set in Japan, which are kind of very tangentially related, and I'm not always sure like how one of them just moves to the next one. Like, I mean, I think the stuff with like Shingen and the Yakuza, that like works, but then you also have like all of these ninja guys, and Wolverine, like trying to, like, and the whole thing about, Wolverine's gift being passed or being stolen. And to me, this is almost a movie that works, but not quite. Like, the pieces are there, and it seems to be kind of work. Like, there's stuff there that I really like. I love Yukio. I think she's a great character. She's almost like a live action anime character. Like, just like from a visual standpoint, and I love that character. But I just don't think it comes together. Like, and the third act really just is when it really comes apart for me, because when they finally get to that mountain, and like the silver samurai CGI mech comes in, you know I'm just kind of like, I'm not sure, like, I a lot of that stuff just falls flat for me, like both in execution and on the emotional level. Like, I'm not even sure, like, I don't think, like, I don't think, like, the big villain, like the Yoshida, like, I don't think, like, he really works. Like, there's no sense of, like, I would understand if at the beginning of the movie he was kind of like, he would go something like, look, I have a favor to ask of you. Okay, can you can you please give me your gift? Can you please, like, help me live longer, and so you can become mortal, I'll become immortal, we both win. It's like it's a selfish demand, but please, can you help me like this? Like, I would understand if that was like the setup, and then he turns out to, and at the end he's just like, okay, you don't want to do this the easy way, fine. But then the character is just, from the outset you can tell this guy is a bad guy. There's no sense of real, like, there's no real connection there. And then at the end, like, I'm not sure, like, I guess it's supposed to be like a surprise twist, that he's like the silver samurai, but I don't think it works. I don't think it. I mean, you could have like it. You could see it coming like a mile away, and all the CGI is just bad. You know. So yeah, ultimately, it just doesn't come together.
I agree mostly with what you're saying about the Silver Samurai. Uninteresting, especially compared to like I think almost any other villain that Wolverine is paired up with. Even like in Lee Schreiber was really fun, really entertaining
Yeah.
in X-Men Origins Wolverine. But on the other hand, X-Men, I mean the Wolverine, also the extended cut, it's just really fun. Like it's really fun. Uh, I know we're talking about like First Class already, about how like that wants to be like silly and wacky and goofy, and it utterly fails. Uh, I feel like Wolverine excels at being like really campy schlock, you know, like
Mm.
okay, and he's like he's going to Japan. He's like a stranger in a strange land. He's like gotta fight yakuza. He's gotta have like yakuza katana fights with his, his claws. It's so schlocky. It's borderline too much, but I think it straddles the line really well. I think that it I'm impressed with how it tries to interplay with X3, which I think probably adds my adoration. Like it 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 co-ops a better version of X3 that never happened. You know,
Mm. Yeah.
where you're like okay, we're gonna only take what the supposed emotional beat would have been, and we're gonna extrapolate that for his character arc in this. It's great. I really enjoy it. I think the action is really fun. Um, I I just like just how like enigmatic and bold and visually eccentric it can be. You know, um,
Yeah.
And I think that all really plays. Like, it's a really fun film. Like, I'm not gonna say it's the best of like, or like even the upper echelons of the season of the series of the franchise. But like, I sincerely really enjoy it. So going for a B. Like, it's not great, but it's far from bad. It's honestly just, I feel, a sincerely entertaining movie. Like, that's all it is. It's just pure entertainment.
Okay. But okay, so I would agree with a lot of that. And at the same time, I would say that this film is trying to be deeper. It's trying to be about death in a way, about death and mortality, about overcoming trauma.
I
Like
agree. On one hand, yes, I know you're gonna get at, but like, I feel like even though people call this a trilogy, the fact that Mangold makes Logan later, which I also forgot Logan. What the fuck? It's not on the list. Um, I'm gonna make a new one after this. Don't worry.
it's
When we get to
okay.
Logan, I'll make a new one.
Okay.
But kind of offsets that, you know. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like he's able to explore more of that in the sequel he makes, because he made both. He didn't make X Men Origins Wolverine, but he made Wolverine and he made Logan. So I understand. I agree. I feel like it doesn't really say as much about like mortality, but thankfully that story does continue in a natural ish kind of way.
No, I agree with that. I mean, it's very much like a rough draft of what he would do with Logan. And Logan, in my mind, is the movie that really succeeds for the most part at doing at exploring all of these ideas that are brought up here. It's just I would say this film is flirting. It's flirting with this idea of being like a deeper character film and a very serious one. But it also does have that. It does also have like a giant mecha silver samurai show up at the end. Um, it has like some stuff that I don't know. I just feel those elements are not they're not very well put together. Like they don't coalesce. I think they coalesce more so in the director's cut than in the theatrical because so the director's cut is a lot better than theatrical cut in that regard. But it's still, it's like I wish like they could rewrite the climax somehow or
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because it seems so silly. Like, how can he steal the X gene? Like, what makes that possible?
he's kind of like a vampire or something, right? Like he bores into the like he has to cut off the claws and bore right into the skeleton. So I assume like whatever he's doing, it's like literally draining the I don't know, like the fluids that are related to Logan's regenerative healing factor. But I don't know if that makes any sense. I just guess it's kind of like no, that's possible. That's just how it works. What matters is okay, Logan, like Wolverine is now aging and he's gonna die. I mean, who cares like how it happens? The point is that that's what's happening. But yeah, that's all. I think that's all that happens in the movie. So,
Oh yeah. But yeah, not perfect. But I actually I loved it more than I thought. It was like I put up watching it for years, because of the reputation of like the X Men Origins Wolverine movie had on. Like, I don't
mhm.
want to see the sequel, or like what would be the sequel. Like, oh, he's in Japan. They're adapting that comic, but it looks like they're not even using the comic. The Frank Miller iconic one. Uh, but I did. I watched it and like, this is really great. And I would have I even as much as I appreciate what Logan did and what it represents for the franchise, like as a stepping stone, as like a kind of a hallmark of the franchise. I wish there was the Wolverine too.
I also wish that because they have a clear setup for what that would look like.
Yeah, like,
Like
oh, like things aren't settled between him and his love interest. Like, they're just starting.
yeah, but also I'm just I would just love to see him and Yukio go off on their own adventure, like unshackled, untethered to everything else. And if you watch the alternate ending on the Blu-ray, Yukio even gives him she gives him like the Wolverine costume.
Oh,
I'm just like, I really wish that had been in the
oh,
movie.
thank God that was cut. I'm sorry.
Really?
I'm gonna say it. They never mentioning the costume or referencing it was the smartest thing this franchise ever did.
Really?
I just don't see him wearing that costume. I don't see him wearing it. Like maybe like the jumpsuit. Maybe the jumpsuit. Like maybe get some accents or like some sort of patterning on like leather or like whatever he's wearing, but like not that cowl. Like, what purpose did that use? That's not the kind of character they were set up in. Maybe like I
Okay.
feel like you need to live in a very much more exaggerated universe to
No, no,
have that costume.
okay, I
I,
agree with that, but
like I don't think the MCU is even there to accept that costume.
okay, all right, I think you're right about that, but at the same time, my take on it was, well, Yukio, like they introduced ninjas here, right? Like they have masked ninjas and all that stuff, and I'm kind of like, well, that costume looks like what that would be like Ninja Wolverine. I'm
Oh,
just like,
oh,
I would
you
love
know,
to see Ninja Wolverine, you know?
oh, okay. Now you brought up a good point. What if like an Oni mask, like an Oni mask, like a demon
Yeah.
mask? It
Well,
didn't look like that, but if it looked more like that, I'd be behind it.
yeah, yeah, maybe but I just kind of I really liked its design. Just yeah, you don't see it that much, but it still seemed to me like it was in that style. It was in that style, like yeah, like Wolverine could go full ninja now, just with claws instead of katanas. Like I would have loved to see that. But I can totally understand why they didn't do it. And maybe that was for the best. Sure. Um, can I just add that I really wish they did not have that kind of mid credits scene, where Magneto and the Professor show up.
Oh, I also wish that, but I think that it did work because otherwise you wouldn't get the excitement factor. It got people hyped. It made Days of Past an event film. It was different than
Really?
different than like saying, oh, okay, we're making a Days of Past movie. Then actually kind of like saying, showing people, yes, we're in the middle of doing this. Like
Oh,
you have to have that kind of factor. Otherwise, like oh, they're making if you're a past film, like in a trailer or something like that. Like rather than like you're watching a movie, we're making this. Stay tuned.
I mean, maybe, but at the same time, I'm just like, you already kind of set up like a Wolverine Yukio movie with that ending, and now it's just you're gonna completely skip over that. I mean, I'm like, okay, 2 years later, what? And he's at an airport, and like Yukio isn't there, and it's just like, what happened over there?
Yeah, it's a
And
shame.
and to be honest, it's also because I really do believe that there are two X-Men timelines, not counting Deadpool. Like for me, the first three X-Men films and the entire Wolverine trilogy, that's like one timeline.
Eh,
No,
I agree with Kimberg that the Logan is the future of History of Past.
it doesn't match. Like I mean,
It matches enough for me. Okay,
uh,
it matches enough for me. It makes more
but
sense to me.
okay, then why does the Professor only make references to the first X-Men film? Like you were a cage fighter, blah blah blah, when I met you, and like yeah, you had Jean Grey, and then like in my mind, Mangold, he was just like, okay, look, I don't care about any of the reboot films continuity. This is I'm just gonna take everything from the first three X movies. So Jean Grey is canon, Sabretooth is canon. Well, even the Wolverine, even X-Men Origins, and
Okay, we see them in Apocalypse getting Wolverine's DNA. All right.
maybe, yeah, we do, but again, it still doesn't. I mean, that was Essex Corp. It's kind of it
Yeah,
was supposed to be a different thing.
I'm pretty sure that's where they got the DNA from in Logan.
Well, I don't know. I mean, his DNA, like he has enough DNA to go around. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been shot and stabbed and whatever so many times. Like they could have gotten it anywhere. I'm just saying, like if I mean, and why do they have like another Caliban? Like another guy named Caliban who has a similar power set but also looks very different. It's like to me, it only makes sense if you take the first three X movies and the Wolverine trilogy as like one timeline, and then you take like all of the reboot movies as like a different timeline, but sometimes with like the same actors.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But honestly, And not much more I want to say about it other than I just think it's a really kind of exciting, fun film.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
All right, so I guess it's my turn again. All right, let's see. Let's see. What comes next?
I think it's Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past. All right, so there's two cuts. I have them both listed here. I'm only going to rank one because why metal things. I'm going to rank the row cut because that's like the cut for me. Um, see, this is where it gets tricky
Ah,
because like I don't think it's as good as X2 or X-Men 1,
oh,
even this cut, but I do like it better than the Wolverine. I'm gonna put it as B because
okay,
I really enjoy it. I think it's a fantastic film. I do think it's fantastic. But I also think Wolverine's fantastic.
okay.
But I think they both succeed at doing vastly different things because this is an event film, and I think that Days of Future Past, everyone's always like, should have been the end of the franchise, and I can't fault them for that. I do think that it does a great job at bringing together like these radically disparate parts of the X-Men franchise, even within themselves, even internally, is able to just kind of grab all these things together and try to make coherent, sensible crossover. And I feel like it's one of the few times and one of the few cinematic universes that could pull this off, because you would have to have like both an established previous continuity and then a new younger continuity that by happenstance existed. Like this is only the X-Men First Class only exists because the X-Men Origins plan fucking failed. So you now that you have X-Men Origins failing, you have X-Men First Class, and so that this confluence of events brings you Days of Future Past. Like this is a unique opportunity, and I think this film makes the most of it. Like you have both, well, thankfully have character actors on both sides that are fantastic, that play off each other so well, and you have an expansive plot that works across two different timelines that makes the movie feel epic and grand in scale, even though they're both kind of doing smaller scale stuff. So you have this insane scope, but it's kept very focused, very funneled, and very concise. Even if like you're having like apocalyptic like levels of scale and threat, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, they call it the Rogue Cut. We get more of Rogan here, and I just love what they do with her. I feel like she feels so much more mature. I love that. Like, if you were to call this the ending, that her and Logan's story, like in the first movie, she saved, like he saves her, and now she's saving him. You know, like they're both very vulnerable positions. Like they're at
Mm.
um, and I love that pin. It kind of shows that everything kind of works out for her, and that's kind of thing that's always been in the first trilogy. Like she's always been in flux. Like she's always been in turmoil. I don't think she's ever been like in at peace in any of the films, and like you kind of see her at peace here. And I think that, and more than anything else, this oddly, I mean, this oddly is like a good button for her character. But yeah, all there's you probably have more to say about this film
Yeah.
than me.
I think so. So for me, this is the best X-Men film.
Oh,
You
really?
know,
Let me get to yours.
yeah, I would totally place Days of Future And again, like I actually prefer the theatrical cut for several reasons. But
The theatrical's right there if you want to put that one there.
oh, it is.
Yeah.
I didn't. Oh, yeah, I see it now. Excuse me. Can I let me take this back? Days. Yeah. Although the poster art is really bad.
It's so bad. Like, the people made so
Yeah.
much memes because it looks like Professor X is farting fire.
Yeah. But I agree with pretty much everything that you've said about the film. It's kind of a miracle. It's kind of like I think it kind of arrived too soon. Like to me, this should have been like the end of the reboot trilogy. Uh, and again, because of my whole approach to timelines, I'm just like, well, the future here, that's not those aren't the original characters from X-Men 1 through 3. Those are like the future selves of the characters from the reboot continuity. This is the timeline where Professor X and Magneto meet in their 30s, and like Magneto gets his helmet from Shaw, and Mystique is Xavier's sister, right? And in my mind, it's, they have the same actors, but it's it's still the reboot continuity. Anyway, I just think that this is the movie that, despite having so many different elements, again, yeah, it really does a miraculous job of just pulling it all together, of keeping it focused. Like, it feels very economical again. I love the tone of it. I love how they balance all these different things they're doing. And I just love how they really, they give everyone something to actually do. Like, the cast is just well utilized, and the emotional, the character scenes here, they're great. I love what they do, especially with Xavier. Like, I mean, like that scene where the two Xaviers talk to each other, over time and space. I think that's just like the highlight of the movie for me. But I also think it's just, I would say it maybe doesn't succeed that well on the action front towards the end. Like, I think some of the stuff with the Sentinels in the 1970s timeline is a little anticlimactic. But at the same time, I think it's overall very satisfying in terms of action, and it's just immensely satisfying in terms of character and story. Like, the way that, they really hinge everything upon, like, it's kind of like, it's like a battle for Mystique's soul. It's like how, everything hinges upon us, making sure that Mystique does not commit this deed, because that's how everything unravels. And so that really gives you like a solid, it gives you like a solid emotional through line through the whole film. It really, like, it helps anchor everything around it. I love how they use Wolverine. Like, Wolverine is the mentor. Wolverine here, I think it flirts initially with Wolverine kind of overshadowing everybody.
Yeah, and but so great that he's just there for like plot device purposes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I love how in the climax, Magneto just kind of tosses him away, right? And it really, everything hinges upon Xavier ultimately. Like, this is an Xavier movie.
Yeah,
Um, and and I think, yeah, they bring everything together just so nicely, so succinctly. This is the kind of, I think the theatrical cut is the type of movie where every scene is functional and there's nothing, nothing extraneous, nothing. It's just, it's unified. It's
yeah,
very well unified.
I agree, and I feel like if there was like a middle ground between the theatrical and the road cut, that would be like pitch perfect for me.
Yeah,
I mentioned it before we start recording, but there's rewatching the theatrical cut after the road cut, I can just see too much where the gaps are. Like
yeah,
I can't unsee that. I can't unnotice that.
yeah. No, no, I understand that. I wish some of the material with Rogue was in the theatrical cut. That said, I don't think everything that's in the Rogue cut should have been restored.
Well, not even a reference to Scarlet Witch.
No,
She
no.
exists, people. She exists.
I, it's like a throwaway detail, it's not really, it doesn't really play into anything.
No. I agree. I agree. But I do like the more comprehensive feel, and I prioritize that. But yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think that um, like all the ways it kind of plays off each other. You need to have that history with the franchise. Like X-Men and X-Men 2 and all those needed to be these landmark moments for this to work.
Yeah,
And so like it's perfect. Like we see like not even Endgame or Infinity War really have this kind of impact because that's because like you everything on Endgame and Infinity War basically only rests on you liking like 10% of the films. Like you're not getting anything out of like Doctor Strange 1 to like really feel the impact of Infinity War. But for X-Men History Past, you have to like X-Men 1, X-Men 2. You have to hate X-Men Origins Wolverine and X-Men 3. Like this movie works because you have to dislike those movies. Like you have to dislike them enough to have this movie that says these movies will never happen. Like how insane that is, a gambit, and it works.
okay, but that's only if you accept the idea that it's all supposed to be one big timeline with all these discrepancies and how, yeah, this movie erases a lot of that stuff from existence, and like I'm just like, no, look, I'm sorry, but this is just the reboot timeline for me.
All right, whatever you say,
Yeah,
But I mean, whatever. But you know what I mean. Like
yeah.
if if those movies weren't as hated or were loved, this movie wouldn't work.
Mm.
You could not make this movie if that in that scenario.
I don't know. I haven't thought about that. That's interesting. I mean, I guess, like, they do sort of play on your knowledge and awareness of all of those films, right? Like
Yeah,
all those relationships which were already established, with like the older characters, especially.
yeah. That's why he's like, oh look, Rogue and Bobby got back together. That kind of shit.
Yeah. Okay. Um, okay. I guess I can see that, but to me, it's like I would say my enjoyment of it, is still, it's not explicitly tied to hating some of those other movies. Like I'm just, I just kind of love what they, what it is in and of itself, I guess. Like how at the same time, yeah, I get it. They definitely build on, I don't think like you could have the same connection with Wolverine unless you've seen those, unless you've seen those previous films, and that now his dynamic with Xavier, it's like an inversion of that. Now he's like the mentor figure, and he's the one giving guidance.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say I don't know if it would not exist though if it weren't for those movies, because I don't think
I'm saying like it'd be a harder sell. It'd be harder sell because people would feel betrayed, I think.
Mm. Oh, okay. No, I think I understand that. Yeah. So it's kind of like people are more willing to accept the time travel and the, I guess, erasure of stuff from continuity
Yeah.
because some of the previous stuff in that continuity was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, I think that's an interesting perspective on that. I need to think about it some more.
I mean, you can see right now, like Flashpoint, like it could be a great movie. It could be a great movie. I doubt it. I think that's all lies. I think that's just WBPR. But the fact of the matter is, it's going to get rid of, or would have gotten rid of, a lot of stuff, and people are not happy about that. You see that vehemently.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know if to me, it's just, this is like what these movies do. They kind of need to find internal ways nowadays to justify continuity discrepancies. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. And I feel like X-Men, that's built in. Like, like that. Like if something like that happened with like within like I don't know, like the Nolan trilogy, that'd be like weird. But within X-Men, like it's become this, like in comics, in animated cartoons, all this kind of stuff. It's become like part of the charm that it goes over the place and it doesn't care, or like it prioritizes less internal consistency. Like you have like all this stuff. The X-Men will be like, okay, oh, you thought your dad was dead? He's actually a space pirate. Also, you have like a third missing brother who might be Gambit, and we'll never reference this again. Gambit might be your third missing twin brother, Scott.
Oh,
This is stuff that they bring up. Like again,
yeah.
it's built in. It's part of the charm, and I think that's what makes X-Men unique. And so people were like, "How do we introduce the X-Men to the MCU? Just have them. Just have them."
Well,
People will roll with it.
I mean, I suppose, I don't know. I think in the case of the MCU, that would be too big of a, departure, maybe from, because they're kind of like, look, we're continuity is king. We have to be as consistent as possible. And like, how do you introduce the idea that, oh wait, there were all of these other superpowered beings among us this whole time? Like, I don't think that could work there. But I mean, I do like but I do get what you mean. It's like it's kind of the X-Men movies are better at approximating, I guess, this effect that the comics have, right? With all of
Yeah,
the weird retcons and these contradictions, and like, okay, now we're going to try to reconcile this, like years later, kind of stuff.
yeah, definitely. But like, I guess we can all just agree that the best part is The Return of Kelsey Grammer, man. He got in a non crap movie. Like
Oh,
I love that story where like it was like a last minute thing where they weren't sure they're gonna have to like film this scene and they're like, oh, we gotta get Kelsey on a plane immediately. We got the moment he touches down, we gotta be in makeup, and then he all for one line of 2 words. Morning, Logan. He walks off. That's it. That's it. But fantastic because I love it. It feels so rounded out. Like it's the best of both branches of the main film series.
well, I definitely agree with that part, and I mean, I love the epilogue. I think
It's so
um,
warm. It's so
yeah,
warm.
yeah, no, to me, it's still that epilogue. That is the end of that is the definitive ending of the reboot timeline. Like I kind of that's how I view it. It does not exist in the same timeline as the Logan ending. Like it's just that's like the definitive ending. So whatever happens after Dark Phoenix, yeah, like Jean is gonna come back and it'll all be okay. You know,
All
and
right.
life will go on. You know.
Life will. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's a good way to put it. Life will go on. Okay, so it's your turn. Deadpool.
Deadpool. So let's see. Yeah, Deadpool for me is like in the uh it's kind of like in the good section. I
All
would
right.
say I would rank it so I guess I'm gonna put it into the B category.
I agree.
Yeah. And I just think that Deadpool is very much like it's an R-rated comedy. It's it has like all of the pluses and minuses that come with that, I think. I really enjoyed it when it first came out. I think not all of the jokes it does
Oh,
land.
definitely.
Yeah, but some of it really lands well, especially if you are a fan of this franchise, if you have been watching these movies, you have a very clear idea of what it's riffing on.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like, again, I said in hindsight, it does make X-Men Origins Wolverine more interesting because it mocks it all the time,
Yeah.
like
It
all the
does.
time.
And I feel like that's something that, again, this is part of the charm I'm talking about. Like this is unique to the X-Men universe. Like you can do this. You can have like an immense amount of self-referential ripping that doesn't break like the bank.
Yeah, like I mean, I like that variety. I think it's just kind of amazing that this film, even exists really, like that it made its way somehow into the studio system. I mean, if I remember correctly, like the whole story there was even that somebody leaked the footage, the test footage that they did, and it just, it garnered so much interest that like we're like, okay, we're gonna give you just like $60 million to do this little
Yeah,
R-rated thing.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah, yeah. Because yeah, they had shot the test footage like back in 2012, like 4 years before the movie came out. I'm thinking I like years before.
really,
Yeah,
wow.
and they were the studio had never had never officially given it the green light, but they had also never canceled it. Like said it was never going to happen. Like for like years, they would be like waffling around like, oh, we're trying to figure out, like things. I can understand because like clearly they didn't know what to do after X-Men 3 finished up. They want to do like a straight prequel trilogy. They want to do like a prequel reboot trilogy. All that kind of stuff. So things were clearly in flux.
Mm.
Um, so I can understand that. I can understand what the how difficult it must have been. Like, okay, where do we put this wacky spin-off? Of a character that might not make the bank and that might not be a huge hit. But Ryan Reynolds is admitted basically, or maybe his admittal is a joke. Had basically admitted that he was the one who leaked the footage.
I haven't heard of that. That's pretty cool.
No, he's like, who could leak the footage? Like he did like a video where like who could leak the footage, right? And he's like unmasks himself. There's a video he did like that. Again, it could have just been a joke. Maybe he wasn't him, but that's his admissal that he did it.
Mm.
And yeah, no, everyone loved it. And the script had been around for ages. Like the script had leaked.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I remember reading, I think, some reviews of it that were very positive.
Yeah. And the movie itself is like very close to the original script. I think maybe it had to be like shortened down because of the budget. Like wasn't what they wanted it to be, but it's very close to the original script. And I know I totally agree. Let me just get to my thing. I'm also gonna put that. You know what? See, this makes it tricky because I don't like it as much as these two. You know what? For now, I think I'm going to move
Oh,
these right there. Or wait, no, what? There, better.
okay.
All right, this is now my new one. All right, because I Deadpool needs to be more middle of the road. You know,
Yeah.
it's fine. I think Ryan Reynolds is fun in it. I think the supporting characters are all really good in it. Ed Skrein as Ajax is really good at playing off like a wacky character while still being like very standard. Like I know it can be a little bit tricky to be like, okay, you're playing the generic villain to like this wacky off the wall character, but he's so perfectly generic. You know, like he never like chews the scenery as well. You know, he never,
I think he's enjoying himself.
yeah, no, I'm not saying he's bad or like he's not entertaining, but he's so like he's able to be as like flat against like he's like it's a temptation. I see it so many times where like you like you have a really kind of like normal villain against like a really silly character, and like oh we gotta have them be like have a scene where like they go like all over the top, but that never happens. And I think that works really great because it keeps the threat like actual, you know.
Yeah. But
He,
I would add that I think that's actually kind of part of the point because Ajax, like, there's this whole thing about how Ajax is never really that big of a villain as he thinks himself to be. Like, he's really he's not that big a deal, and Deadpool constantly mocks him, right? Like for like making himself sound so big and so self-important, you know?
yeah, no, I think that it's great foil. It's a great foil to have. I just hate like 80% of the jokes. Almost all the jokes don't land for me. I think the best parts of the movie are the parts where it's being serious and then have a little bit of a stinger to it. But all the outright jokes where he's talking to the audience are awful. Like, oh, look, oh, he's referencing Green Lantern. Or, oh, look, he's referencing like that. Like, oh my god, it's just so bad. It's
I,
so bad.
I like the part about 16 walls though. Like I'm just, a fourth wall and a fourth wall. That's like 16 walls.
I feel like fourth wall and a fourth wall was great, but he's like 16 walls too much. Too much. You ruined that joke by making it too much.
Okay.
But stuff like that. Like it goes too far in some places. But I think that the emotional core, dramatic core, like Ryan Reynolds, like is again. I think people had forgotten how good an actor he is. He's been in he had some really great roles. But he's more known for just like his really schlocky, really lowbrow comedies. When like did anyone forget when this movie was first announced? They were like Ryan Reynolds, my God, a has been. Like I remember being online, being like, dude, he was great in Buried. I think he's gonna be cool as Deadpool. Because like I always name check Buried is my favorite Ryan Reynolds movie because he's so good.
Buried is great.
Buried is so.
Yeah, it's not maybe great, but it's really good.
It's a really good, like really solitary film. Like it's like a very good. How are you gonna, bottle film? It's a really good bottle film.
There was also like I think it was there was also like a nice sci-fi action movie. I think where he plays a guy who it's like he's really an older guy who transfers his mind into his body. Like he transfers his mind into Ryan Reynolds' body, and I thought that was like okay. I thought he was good in that.
I think I remember that. I still remember what it was called.
Yeah, I don't either.
But yeah, no. Like it's a lot of the jokes don't land, and so I really do suffer through this a little bit, just a tiny bit.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's like it's one of those things where I think like a lot of R-rated comedies, they tend to have a lot of extraneous jokes that are just there and heavily improvised. And I'm like, yeah, you could probably cut a lot of that and the movie would be better, but it just keeps going.
You can tell that I can feel like part of it was that they didn't know how popular this is going to be. So they wanted to like make sure or like that they were firing constantly. You know, like okay, if people aren't interested, and maybe they'll laugh. Maybe you can sell us more as a comedy than an action hero movie. You know, like
Yeah.
people respond to the character. Maybe they'll respond to the jokes.
Yeah, like I mean, I guess yeah, that would help sell it. I think that would help sell it as an R-rated comedy if maybe the other like elements of it didn't exactly connect. So they could also they could hedge their bets.
Yes, definitely. Then it does leave you with stuff like, oh, did I leave the oven on like that? What does that mean? That has no purpose.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have anything specific you want to say about this?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's I think it's a good middle of the road kind of film. That's like about it.
Yeah, I think overall it's pretty middle of the road. I got it, like right in the middle. But Ryan Reynolds, man, his performance is perfect. Is so good, and the parts where it's really taking that character arc like really seriously are like that could have been a fantastic movie, and thankfully it eventually becomes a fantastic movie. All right, because
Okay.
it's a little hint. I also like that they brought Hydra Bob in and did, so it's like such a on the line thing, and I hope I don't give a shit about Deadpool 3. I would rather them not make a Deadpool 3, but since they are, it would be a shame if they didn't bring back Hydra Bob. They had him in the first Deadpool movie when they couldn't even call him Hydra Bob. So if they don't have him in number 3 when they can, then fuck that movie.
I'll be honest. I'm not sure which character you're referring to.
Okay,
Like,
so Hydra Bob is basically like one of his sidekicks in the comics. It's the henchman for Hydra called Bob. It's a joke where he's a nameless henchman. It's very Venture Brothers-y. Um,
oh, okay.
but in the movie, they obviously it's an X-Men movie. Fox, they weren't bought by Disney yet, so they couldn't do any Marvel stuff. But Hydra Bob is such an iconic character for the comics that they had like one of Ajax's random henchmen. He's like, Bob, you're here, and like, yeah, I got a new job. So it's like, okay, that's meant to be Hydra Bob, and he knocks him out, and he uses him to like spell the Ajax name, Francis.
Oh,
So like
okay.
that's the funny thing. Like, okay, it's good. I like comprehensive feeling adaptations where if you can't do something, I like it when you do your best to do it.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
like, so I would hope he'd be back for number 3. Not that they're with the MCU, you know.
I mean, I just hope that if he comes back, that they still have him. They still have the R-rated Deadpool. I
I mean,
hope he retains like all of the elements that he has in Deadpool and Deadpool 2.
my hope is that this is secretly a stealth XCU movie. Like it's literally like they don't give a shit about the MCU stuff, and it's just let's just have another X-Men universe movie.
I mean, it would be great, but if they could do that, but to say, I mean, Deadpool sort of exists in his own universe already, so he could just be okay. I'm now like in both like like universes. Like I don't care. That
Yeah,
would be fun.
yeah. But yeah, other than that, it's good. It's fine.
Okay.
All right. So whose turn is it? Your turn.
Let's see.
Oh no, it's my turn. It's my turn.
It's still your turn.
Okay. So next up is X-Men Apocalypse.
Oh,
You know what? B. I like it.
really?
I like it a lot, but like it's it's got all the same issues as X-Men 2, but it's not as good as X-Men 2. You know, it's not as good as X-Men 2. I admit that, but it's got all the same issues. Whereas it's got, I think, a really great like threat. I think Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse is fantastic. Um, he's not as fully fleshed out as like Stryker is. He's not as like manic as Stryker is, but he's still really good as Apocalypse. I really enjoy kind of like seeing the backgrounding stuff for like the X-Men, especially the '90s, like 2000s team that they're kind of trying to set up. Sophie Turner isn't that great as Jean Grey. I don't think her American accent is there. She feels like she's got mouth of cotton balls where she's talking like this all the time. For a lot of British people, when they have American accents, they either like go really cranky sounding or like they go really deep sounding because they really want to flatten out or like make their syllables irregular. So they choose one or the other. She chose the second one. and it's really distracting. But I love the stakes. I love this is like the better version of X-Men 3, you know?
Hmm.
Where like X-Men 3 tried to be a blockbuster and it failed on its ass. And X-Men Apocalypse tries to be a blockbuster and it almost succeeds. Like it doesn't really succeed, it almost does. Like it has like these really blockbustery stakes. Apocalypse is such a point blank villain, but he's played with such gravitas. He's written with such impactfulness, you know. Like he has such great speeches. It's not like, oh, the pawns. No, he's like, he gives this giant speech about like fate and destiny, and that's all to manipulate
Hmm.
Magneto and his insecurities about like losing his family to the Holocaust. Like that's a bold swing. They go back to Auschwitz. Bold. It's bold swing. It's a bold swing. Um, and that scene is fantastic. It's got so much like impressively like emotional set pieces. Um, it's just so long. It's so long, and the third act is so boring. The final parts are so boring. That's where it loses me. But overall, I really enjoy it. What about you?
Okay, so hold on, let me put this up. Yeah, here we are. Yeah.
J'accuse.
Yeah, it's look, I'll be honest. Yeah,
Ooh, ooh.
I'm kind of it's you know, it's like yeah, it's down there. It's in the, lower in that lower tier. It's kind of like the three it's among the three movies that I think are kind of, like in the worst category. And um I don't know. It's just to me, it's kind of a mess. Like I was surprised that like The Last Stand is more or less coherent, whereas Apocalypse is just, and maybe I would need to. Like, I'll be honest, like I haven't like watched it that recently, but it's just like I remember how like thinking how this is a movie that seems to have all these different parts that are kind of at odds, with one another.
I can agree with that, but in my
Like,
mind and from my experience, I felt like that opened up the scope. Where like, yes, there are these different threads, but for a while they all kind of coalesce together. Like we're seeing different, like we're seeing how expansive, like the world is in a way.
hmm.
But yeah, I can totally agree with what you're saying. I can totally see it.
I mean, it's just, there are all of these. Again, it's like I see potential here, but even with that, like I don't see this as a coherent movie. It's just like it tries to do so many different things at once, and it just kind of drops the balls there. Like
Yeah, especially at the end.
yeah, I
Especially.
mean, especially at the end, but even towards the beginning, the fact that they try to introduce this whole new young cast, I'm kind of like, I really feel this should have been a movie that should have been either about building the new X-Men or a movie about sending off the old X-Men that were already established like 2 3 movies ago. Like it should not have been about both things. And some of the choices in this movie to me are just kind of, they're kind of baffling, really. I mean, what they do with Havoc, who kind of sort of dies.
Yeah, right. That was so
it,
disappointing.
yeah, like I mean, it's not just disappointing, but it's just like, I mean, he doesn't even really get to take part in any battle, like really whatsoever. It just kind of happens, and then it's like Cyclops takes over what his role could have been for like the rest of the movie, I guess. They have this whole thing about Quicksilver wanting to reunite with Magneto because he found out Magneto is his father. And that seems to be like it seems to be building towards like this big emotional, thing, and it's going to be a key turning point in Magneto's story. Like you can see them like walking up to that, and then it's like, no, we'll just kind of save it for another movie, and Magneto's going to, like turn to the good side anyway. And I'm kind of like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah,
are you serious? And like I mean that doesn't even come up in Dark Phoenix, right?
it was supposed
So
to. It's supposed to because like again, we'll get to it when we get to it. But
okay,
um, the first again, part of what the second part of the second half, the unmade second part of Dark Phoenix Part Two was a 2-part movie. Was going to be that part of Magneto's motivation was going to be revenge against Jean Grey for crippling Quicksilver.
really?
Yeah, because they were gonna. I guess we were never gonna get like a scene where they were found out, but he was supposed to have been told, and they're supposed to have like reconciled his father and son in between the time skip, and so part of it was going to be
Oh.
like, oh, like revenge for Quicksilver.
Oh. Wow, that's interesting. Wait, but was that supposed to happen?
Not in the movie, but that was probably happening back when it was a 2-part movie.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I will be honest though. I think like when you say it like that, I'm kind of like thinking, wait a minute, but that would actually work. Like what if that was his motivation instead of like Raven's death? It would be more like, like it could work like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel like they could have still like introduced it, and it's a shame they didn't.
Yeah. But I guess like but bringing that back to Apocalypse again, it's just I feel that was such a bad
It's
choice.
it's a blue balls kind of moment.
Yeah, like just from a storytelling standpoint. And maybe it's just me, like I kind of feel maybe they could have, I don't know, in my mind, like a better movie would have been like Magneto finds out like Quicksilver is his son, he turns against Apocalypse, and ultimately like he dies, like protecting him and protecting his family. Like, he actually dies in the final battle with Apocalypse, so that whole battle has legitimate like personal stakes and whatever. Because like at that point, even Magneto does some stuff here, which is, I mean, he basically almost ends the world. Like he's really the only guy necessary to end the world, right? Like now he's become so powerful that he can literally destroy the Earth, right? By altering the magnetic poles or whatever, or something. And it's just kind of like, how do you come back from that? Like how do you, like, what's like the logical? Well, I would say if he died in this movie, and then like, okay, that would make sense, right? But the way that they just, people are just like, oh, okay, well, he didn't end the world, and he sort of helped us out, and then we'll just let him go again, despite everything that he's done. You know, like I don't know. But it's like stuff like that that just really baffles me. It baffles me that this movie again does Wolverine. Like it has that whole segment with Stryker that does not belong there at all, right? Like,
Okay, no, see that was okay. So that's a mystery. Part of this was Bryan Singer wanting revenge against X-Men Origins. Like he apparently he had always hated that X-Men Origins like wasted the Wolverine kind of origin. So he was very adamant. I remember reading an interview with someone. It might have been Kinberg, it might have been Singer himself, where it was like he wanted to like put a bow on it. Like he wanted to have his own like this is what happened, not Origins. This is what happened. So that's
okay.
why that's all. And at a point, there's what like Singer was like flopping like whether or not this would be his last X-Men movie. And I think he wasn't sure, and so he wanted to have it in here just in case. Basically, he didn't want to leave without it being in there.
Okay, I guess I kind of understand that, but it
It
just does
slows the
not
movie
belong.
down. It
Yeah,
slows the movie down to a halt. Like
yeah,
there's no like it's so purposeless.
yeah. Like but it's just I don't know. But I'm just like this whole, you could cut that whole part with Stryker almost complete like out of the movie entirely, and I think it would just be a better movie, like without dealing with any of that. I mean, if you watch I would understand even if they had set that up better, like because Days of Future Past originally ended with Wolverine indeed being taken by Stryker, and he said put him down as X, like that was like the ending, and then they decided no, we don't, time is different, that's not his fate anymore, let's change that. So they add the Mystique eyes to Stryker, so now it's like Mystique is gonna take care of Wolverine, right? And then it's like now they go back on that, like complete like 180-degree turn,
Yeah,
so I'm just like, guys, make up your minds already. Like
it does. It feels really weird. And I can't believe we haven't talked about either Quicksilver scene.
oh yeah, that's true. Well, I think like the one in the first in Days is like the better scene.
It's definitely better. It's definitely better. It's a more purposeful scene.
Yeah.
But I do like how I think like some Apocalypse scene, it gets too maligned nowadays. I think a lot of people hate on it too much. Like it doesn't really matter, or it doesn't have any character motivation or any character focus. But I do like how like intense it is in a way, because like he's like barely saving these people, like barely. It's while in Days of Future Past, it's a fun showcase, but no one's ever really in danger.
I don't know. I mean, it felt like I mean, I mean, I don't. I thought like, well, the cops were using plastic bullets, right? And like Charles can't stop them. So,
But I mean, like
Quicksilver's like,
he's there with time to spare. I mean, with like here, it's like
yeah,
he's barely saving people, barely, just barely.
yeah. But at the same time, though, even though he's barely saving them, it still has that weird tone, right? Like
Yeah,
it's still trying to be kind of like fun and upbeat, like stuff like that. Like I'm just like, well, the music choice, if you want it to be like intense and life threatening, I'm just like, why does it have that upbeat?
it's a very cool kind of trying to be a very cool kind of scene.
Yeah, like I just feel tonally that's just like that is the wrong choice for that.
Definitely. But again, with me, it's hard to like really knock it for that because I like how silly this movie is. Like I
Okay.
feel like again, like it's like with X-Men, it's like X3, or like I hate how silly the movie is because like it's so flatly silly. Well, this movie is really silly, but it's making big choices with its silliness. I can respect that a little bit more.
Yeah,
Like
like it's trying to be intentionally, silly and outlandish and everything.
yes,
Yeah. Um, well, I guess that's a good point. I mean, look, I do like Oscar Isaac. I think
I think he's
Oscar
so good. I think that he's so good.
he feels like maybe I mean I think he suffered really under all that makeup and
Mm,
everything, but he still like gives it his all. He's not phoning it in.
definitely
Um,
not.
yeah, and at the same time, like let me put it this way: I love Apocalypse as a villain, and
Mm,
I guess mostly because I grew up watching the TV show, right? And I was
mm.
really waiting. I was like, man, when are they going to get to Apocalypse? When are they going to get to Apocalypse? So I was like super pumped, right? And then they get to Apocalypse, and I mean, I like Isaac's performance, but at the same time, I feel Apocalypse is kind of a lackluster villain for the most part. Like he doesn't, I don't feel he doesn't kill anybody, to establish himself like as a villain. He doesn't really. Uh, I don't know. It just feels like at the end of the day, it's like his whole um thing. It's like you never get the sense that he's a legitimate threat. You know, like that's how I felt.
I agree. I agree with that completely. But I like how grand he is. Like that's like, again, like I like the movie more for like how exaggerated it is, more than like what it does well. I like
Yeah, like
how
it's operatic.
it's operatic. Like when you first see that big opening scene where it's like dun 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 dun, it's like a giant
Mm.
Pharaoh marks. He has this giant golden pyramid. They have like these giant ankhs on the side that like feed solar energy to his body. It's insane. They have that really great theme where like the Egyptian chanting. Dun, dun, it's so good. And then they have the four horsemen. And they're like who are basically like meant to be homages to the Fantastic Four for some reason, because at that point the X-Men universe was like it was hinting like they want a crossover for a Fantastic Four movie.
I had not actually thought of that, but that's a great point. I
Yeah.
want to rewatch that sequence now.
Well, at least three of them are. I think there's no Mr. Fantastic, but like there's really strong guys. There's the one that shoots fireballs, and there's the one that uses force fields. So it's like they're Fantastic Four basically. And they're just sacrificing their bodies to save this guy. It's so good. She's like cracks her back. She's like and she saves his life. Like that's so it's fantastic. And I love the giant nuke speech. Yeah, I didn't really find anyone, and but it's all pompous. I love the pompousness of it.
Yeah, the
The
grandiosity of it.
grandiosity. It's
Yeah,
so outrageous. I love how outrageous this movie is.
I
Uh,
mean, I okay, yeah, I can appreciate that, but even so, it's like I still feel there's just so much that more that you could have done. Like,
yeah,
even with the horsemen, I mean, the horsemen in the past sequence, in the
are
big,
so cool.
in the prologue, they're cool. The horsemen that he gets together, they kind of suck.
I know. This is my big thing of this film is that like okay, so it's 10 years after Days for Your Past, right? And they mention in Days for Your Past that Stryker's kid Jason is 8, right? So I thought like it would be a no-brainer, right, to have him in the movie.
Did they really do that in the? Oh yeah. I think that was like, yeah, there was a scene between him and Trask, right?
Yeah,
In the
where
oh
he's like, how old is your son? 8, and he's like 10 years from fighting age, and like, so it just made I felt like why they could introduce that. And that would be more of an interesting way to bring Stryker in. Like, hey, maybe he's unable to take Xavier's brain, but we know already that that Jason Stryker, Mastermind, is more powerful, or at least potentially more powerful than um, Xavier. So like he takes him on. Maybe he manipulates him. Maybe he's a horseman for a while before he tries to save his body.
I mean, maybe, I think that would be interesting. I think Stryker as a whole would make more sense if they actually brought Stryker back for the climax. Like, Stryker shows up with a bunch of, I don't know, battalions or whatever, like the US Army or
Like
the
a strike
Marine
team.
Corps. Yeah, like a strike team, or the actual Marine Corps attempts to help the X-Men bring down Apocalypse and his, so there's a real like sense of war and everything. Like if they brought the army or Stryker's team or whatever into that climax, to
That would make a lot
actually
more
do something.
sense.
Yeah. But because otherwise it's kind of like, okay, that happened, and then let's move on to another thing that happens.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, it's not perfect. It's middle of the road for me. I put it in the middle of the road, but I really enjoy it. Like it's so much fun for how goofy it is. Like that over the top sequence where you meet Nightcrawler and like the German like announcer is like, only a devil can fight an angel.
Uh, but can we talk about the fact that, like, okay, this
Perfect
is yet
casting. Perfect
oh,
casting.
well, the casting is good, right? But again, like Mystique and Nightcrawler, like, I mean, it just bothers me, like, Mystique never even, there's no even allusion to the fact that, like, hey,
The
I think I knew your dad because he could
X
also teleport and he was red and he had a tail and stuff.
X2 had more of an illusion to the relationship because they had a
Yeah,
little heart to heart, and like
yeah.
there's nothing in this movie. It's just ridiculous.
No, there's like nothing. I'm just like, those two characters are right there on screen.
All
Like
right,
how do you miss this or something? I
all
don't
right,
know.
all right. So it's your turn. Unless you want to have any. Oh wait, no. One more thing. The apocalypse nuke scene is amazing.
Okay,
All right.
I I guess I would I would agree with that. I think I think the destruction that everything they built will fall. I like that. I think that's pretty cool.
No more superpowers. Get it? Because it's talking about political superpowers,
Yeah,
but it's also
yeah,
funny because they're superheroes.
yeah. Oh,
I,
okay.
I,
Well,
I love how goofy this movie is. I love it. I love how like he touches the screen like I'm learning. It feels like such a '90s like blockbuster movie. I can't hate it. Like X3 is such a shitty 2000s blockbuster, but this
Mm,
is just it's such a really schlocky '90s blockbuster made in like the 2020s, like almost 2020s. I love it. It's such a throwback to me. I love.
okay. Okay. No, no. I see that. I guess it's just
Oh,
to
like when
me.
like when he says like the world must be cleansed in Egyptian, and then Dormer's like, "What do you mean? What'd you say?" And he's like, "The world must be healed." I love it. It's so goofy. I love this movie. I need to rewatch it after this ends, man.
well, I mean, I suspect maybe my opinion of it will go up in
All right,
time.
wait.
Maybe I don't know. It just I just wish it hung together better.
Oh,
It
definitely. This could have been all timer if it hung together more.
yeah, but I like to imagine that we like this. There is a version of this movie somewhere in the multiverse where they don't do the young cast. They just focus on the old cast, send them off in grandiose epic style. Like an epic battle with a god to save the world, and then it's like now we need a new generation of heroes or something.
Yes. Anyway, I sent you a new link with Logan in it.
Okay.
So you need to remake this list.
Oh. Okay. Then all right. Hold on.
Just
Give
open up
me.
in a new tab and then just share the new tab when you're finished recreating this one.
Okay, give me a minute. New tab. Okay, yeah, gotta read. Okay, let me see. So, all right, give me a minute. Just gonna see X-Men. Okay, X2, X-Men Legends, Days of Future, X-Men 3. Wow, there's a lot here.
Yeah, there's so many movies in this fucking franchise.
Yeah, there are, right? I mean,
And like how many of them have we really hated so far? Two each.
yeah, two exactly. That's a great batting average,
Yeah,
really.
people are like, oh man, the bar is so low. No, the bar is high. The bar is high when they're talking about like X and the MCU.
I mean, yeah, I feel it's like people tend to pretend that there are a lot more bad X-Men movies than there really are. Like I would say most of them are actually pretty good, you know? And
Yeah.
some of them are great. Okay, let's see. We're okay, almost done. Um, where's the first one? Okay, here we go. And first class and pool. Okay. All right, I think that's it. Let me just share the new one. Here. Share.
I removed you first. So now try sharing now.
Okay, let me close that one, the other one, the first one. Okay, now we can do share screen, Chrome tab. Okay, I think I got it. All right, so we are now on Logan. And okay, so Logan goes up to the S.
All
S
right.
rank.
I mean, I
Yeah.
can't argue with that. I mean, I will, but I can't argue. I can't argue with it now. I can understand it. All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go off
No,
on Logan.
so I think Logan is kind of, for me, is the second best X-Men movie. It's again, to me, this is the definitive ending of the original timeline. You know, and it's a kind of a bleak but hopeful ending at the same time. And I think it's really great in parts. I think the first half of this movie is outstanding, and then it kind of goes downhill a little bit. I think it's really right around the midpoint. I think when they introduce this family, you know, that I think like they stop on the highway and they have to help this family.
I feel
And
like
that,
that's really when the Western influences start to tug and pull at it a bit, because like that's a
yeah,
very Western thing to do, but it doesn't really make sense for the film.
yeah, I feel that I agree with that. So it really feels like it's a bit too much into that Western aspect of it, and it just kind of stands out, right? Like it kind of draws attention to itself, and then I think they reel that back in eventually. But the whole episode to me just kind of it really diminishes the movie. At that point, I mean, I love like most of the stuff that this film is doing. I think it was a great decision to really ground it, to make a, you know, like a big character centric film, and it is a western. You know, it has like the old gunfighter, you know, putting on his claws again, you know, to help like the you know, to help like save the, I don't know, like the good people from the forces of evil or the savagery or whatever. You know, he, you know, so even though as usual, like he, you know, the old gunfighter who doesn't want anything to do, you know, with all this stuff, but he decides, no, I have to help, you know. um I, I think there's a lot about it that just works so well. You know, the cinematography is amazing. The casting again is great. I love the cast. I love X-23. I think X-23 is a great character, and the way that they, if anything, perfect. Like I think works from start to finish. It's X-23. I love what they do with old Charles Xavier, and I get and how Xavier now is like this. You know, he's like 90. He's I I love how they explore his you know, his aging and his mortality and what that does to someone who is as powerful as Xavier. And you know, I love the way that it's shot. Right, like it's a very beautiful film.
Oh
Like
yeah, no, I think getting Mangold back was definitely the right choice. I mean, like I think the Wolverine is seen as kind of like more of a mid-tier movie nowadays, but like they really did a great job just like planting their flag. Like this is the guy we need to get back again.
hmm yeah, for sure. And I really do think this movie that manages to really explore a lot of the things that the Wolverine only hinted at, like all of the ideas about, age and mortality and uh, what that means. I don't know. I mean, it's just it's a really good movie. It's a really confident film, for what it is. It's not like, again, I think like there are parts of it that get, that are diminished, and I don't like what they did with the ultimate villain of this film, like, by which I mean X-24, because I really don't think they should have done another villain who's basically a doppelganger of Wolverine.
It
Like,
should have been
that's
Dakin. It should have been Dakin. Why wasn't it fucking Dakin?
uh, sorry, I'm not familiar. Who is Dakin?
His son, his Japanese son.
Oh,
Okay, like they really established a relationship in the Wolverine, right?
right.
It's like it should have been Dakin.
Mm.
Like, that would have been like at least it would have brought in, like, it feels so disconnected to the Wolverine, even though it's the same director, Like
Yeah,
that would have brought back in, like, okay, now we're just putting a close to this chapter of his life, And then
that
you
would
have
have been really cool, actually. I mean, that would have, like, I mean, now it's like he has like two kids in a way who are on different sides of the, I don't know, of the, what do you call
moral.
it? Yeah, yeah, who are like split. Wow, yeah, that would have been really cool. I have to say.
Maybe they would have done it in the canceled X-23 movie.
I didn't know there was actually supposed to be an X-23 movie.
Oh, right when they were like getting sold, they were like a bunch of pitches being made. And a lot of them weren't greenlit, but the pitches were real. Like, you had X-23, you had X-Force, I think was a big one. Doctor Doom movie, all that kind of shit. But like, of
Mm.
course, Disney said no to all of them.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's sad. That is just sad. I mean, like, Daphne Keene, I think, is just
They should bring
she's
her
such a
back.
standout.
Yeah,
Such
people saying like, oh, who are they gonna recast X-23? She's like 18 now. Like, bring her back.
Yeah, they should. They should totally bring her back. I mean, who knows? Maybe the MCU will bring her back, and she'll be like the Wolverine of the MCU. Who knows?
Maybe she'll be in Deadpool 3.
That would be, that would make a lot of sense. Like, that would just, yeah. If and when Deadpool 3 comes out, I hope X-23 is in that movie.
Because it'd be funny, it'd be like they could market it like Wolverine's gonna be in this one because X-23 became Wolverine in the comics like a couple years ago.
Right.
Now they share the mantle, so that'd be funny.
That would be really funny, but also, I mean, I don't know, continuity or whatever, but it's just like that is a character that deserves more,
Yeah, an actress has become like an actual actress.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but with that said, what else is there to say? I like that. Okay. So I love that this is an R-rated, full-blown, R-rated Wolverine movie where he can just go. He can finally, like,
you see blood now.
Yeah, you see blood. You see like how like the claws actually cut through people. I mean, finally, it's like because it is kind of weird. Because when he stabs people in the previous X-Men movies, for the most part, you don't really see blood or much blood, if at all. I think there's some in X2, but for the most part, right, it's really bloodless cutting, right?
Yeah, the guy. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And then and here it's just like, wow, yeah, this is like brutal. This is like kind of scary in a way, and I think it's great that they do that. I like how visceral it is, how it really goes for it in the action. I kind of I also love that, like, Wolverine actually kills like the real main bad guy. He actually kills him with a gun. Like, that to me was just a great, joke. Right? Like, because he just, oh yeah, he just takes out a gun and shoots him. Right? I think that was amazing.
Let's see. Mind if I
No, go ahead. Like, where would you put it?
Yeah. All right, let's see. Let me share my screen. Because I had to make the new one on my own as well. Here we go. I'd place it right around here. Like, again, I really love the Wolverine. Like, I love it. I think I love it. I love it for the same reasons I love Apocalypse, awkwardly enough, because it's so exaggerated. It's so over the top. It's so silly, so goofy, but it's got a lot of verb to it. And I do love a lot of what the Logan is doing and for why people love it too. Mm-hmm. But I can't place one above the other. Like, I know Logan is, like you said, X-rated. It's more mature. Like, it really takes the characters and the drama really seriously. I love all of that. But I'm at two minds. I love both things. I love when things are really silly, and I love when things are like really serious.
Yeah.
So I love a movie can do both. So it's hard to choose between them, and both movies have stuff that I wish was a little better. Like you said, the X-24 stuff. I can't get away from that. I like it. But one thing I really loved, and this is why I love it being like the end of like the main timeline. Like, there's only one timeline that keeps getting changed, and I love it being the end of that one. Is that, well, one, oh my god, that I love how, like, when he's mulling over how the legacy of the X-Men is nothing but like merchandise and lies, and he's like has the X-Men comic book, and he's like the page of Rogue on it, and it's like it's such a fantastically subtle moment. It's so good. It lasts like 6 seconds, but it's like, of course, he'd be like, this would be like the most cynical moment for him, because Rogue's entire legacy is just like this ridiculous caricature in a comic book, and like that must sting so much.
Yeah, it's I mean, I have to say, I think the meta aspect is interesting here, right? Because they kind of seem to do a bit of a Deadpool like riff on some of the, like, was it real? Was it a comic book? Was it like,
oh, well, that's the thing, right? Because that's part of like what happened in Dark Phoenix, is like, Professor X merchandises the hell out of them. So this is why Simon Kimber's like, that eventually leads to Logan, all that shit. That's why it was in Logan. And so that's why I like it being like one storyline. Like, I mean, not one storyline, but like one universe. Because, like, okay, that makes sense. And like it's another thing that the professor ruined, basically.
Okay, but they do establish in Logan, even though I think it's supposed to be 2029 or whatever, which is just 6 years after the happy ending of of Days, and they're like, well, there haven't been any new mutant births for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades or whatever. There was all this poisoned corn that was suppressing the X gene or something.
I love that too. I love the corn. I love, because again, I love that, even in, like, again, going by what producer was saying, which of course, the entire franchise is all up in the air and never really cared about consistency ever.
Never let continuity get in the way of telling a good story.
Exactly. But I love that, because even in the ultra happy Days of Your Past ending, they still find a way to be insanely dark and depressing. They were poisoning the corn. Like, you see it too. Like, you see like corn beer, corn chucks, corn products of all kinds. It's such a background detail in the movie as well. But they are poisoning the corn, and it was just passive genocide. It's insanity, and I love it. Like, even the most happiest like possible future is just again. I think that's one thing that a lot of fans like about X-Men, is that every time, almost all futures are terrible. Like, there's no good happy endings for the X-Men.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if Gina's still Phoenix, I imagine she could come back one day and resurrect everybody.
I know, but like, even then, like, on a long enough time scale, all the X-Men, it's nothing but good. And I think that's something like in the recent comics as well with John Hickman. He makes a point of being like, there's no happy endings for the X-Men. Like, there's a character. I don't know if you kept up with the recent comics, but the character that can reset the universe. All right. After they die, and they're immortal, but they can reset the universe every time they die. And so so we get to like, we see like 3 different, not like alternate timelines, but like literally resetting the universe. So they've done it like 9 times, and like various ages. Like, here's one where they live to be 330 years old. Here's one they live to be 60. Here's one they live to be 1,000. Here's one they live to be 3,000. Because they're immortal. But they're immortal only so much as they can live forever, but they can still die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So every time,
like, they're ageless, but they're still vulnerable to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So every time they die, the universe resets, and if that's their mutant power, and if they do it 9 times, and they realize after like not time number 4 that there are no happy endings for the mutants. No matter how they start trying to like play the long game, with Professor X, with Xavier, with humans, with robots. No, nothing works, and it never will.
Well, that is bleak. That is
Yeah,
really.
and that's why I love about Logan, because like if you take it as the sequel or like the future, this is your past, I guess not. I guess. But yeah, no, I really do. I really do enjoy Logan. I enjoy all of that. I love how like this nebbish little scientist that had killed thousands of mutants just through their food just shows up like, oh, whatever. Like, oh, here, like he's so ineffectual. He's so
Yeah.
unimposing, and it's just so that's what's so sinister to me about it. Like it's so insidious and like, oh, it's so good. Such a great film.
It is. I mean, and he's ineffectual by design. Like he's
Yeah.
just, he's just the man, and he doesn't even. I mean, Wolverine is just like, yeah, okay, I think I killed your father. Well, and then he shoots him in the head. Right? I mean, it's that was just one of those movie moments that I'm like, okay, that was great.
Yeah.
Um,
Other than that, like it's fine. I really enjoy it, but I don't know. I feel like my A group is like movies that I love for completely different reasons. But yeah.
No. I mean, I think that's a very valid. I mean, I think it's a great point. And I love the thing that I like about certain franchises, long running ones, is that there is never a real consensus over what is the best, what is the worst. It's like people can always just have these very different takes on things. I think that's a great thing.
You know what? I'm gonna move this down.
No S's?
Well, I gotta make room for it's my turn again, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Deadpool 2
Oh.
S tier. I mentioned it before. I love when things are really goofy, and I love when things are really serious. And Deadpool 2 is like the perfect mixture of both. It is equally amazingly balanced. There's only like one bad joke in the entire movie. That's how fantastic it is. Like everything else is so
Wow.
good. Ryan Reynolds is an acting powerhouse in this. All right, he lands the jokes, but he's also just so earnestly, genuinely melancholic, depressed, and just so it's so hard to like get him into like to stratify him because like he runs the gamut of emotions. Then you have Hot Hands. Now I know what I mentioned before. I love it when stuff tries to adapt things, but they can't really. So they make do what they have. Now Hot Hands is an amazing character because he's basically like their attempt to do Genesis, which was Apocalypse's reincarnation, who Deadpool like bonded with, and at a point they were like, "Oh, Genesis when he grows up, he'll just become Apocalypse again, and you might have to kill him." And Deadpool has like this giant conflict, inner conflict about that, and so they tried to adapt that through Hot Hand, and it's amazing. I love that. I love that they introduced Lady Death into this movie. Not obviously they can't really introduce Lady Death because it's an insane concept to try to introduce, but they killed off Vanessa and they made her Lady Death, and they adapted the whole thing where like he can only be reunited with Lady Death whenever he dies, and so they have that kind of like heart to heart all the times throughout the movie whenever he dies. It's amazing. I love it. It's such a great distillation of some of the better parts of the comics. I just think it's so fun. It's so fun. It's so hearty. It's so emotional. I get carried away with it. It just takes me away. I love the ride it goes on. It's sad. It's like a genuinely sad film as well, but it's very heartening. Like, I love the father-son relationship that's at like the core of the film. Like, with Hot Hands, like he's like a father figure, but he's torn between two father figures, Deadpool and Juggernaut, who is played by Ryan Reynolds. So you have that very like direct kind of parallel. Like they're both played by Ryan Reynolds, so like you get it. You get the fact that like these are like two opposing but similar parallel forces on this kid. I love it when stuff does that. Like you hear about Peter Pan. Captain Hook is played by the darling father actor, and a lot of times, just because you need that parallel, and you see that in Jumanji, where Van Pelt is played by Robin Williams' father's actor, Jonathan Hyde.
Right.
It's because I love it when direct parallels exist, and they're played so efficiently. Cable, I think is the only part that's a little bit weak. Like I wish there was more done with the fact that he's Cable. Like the movie's joke, but like, hey, aren't they gonna mention that his dad's Cyclops ever?
Yeah, it's
But it's
I don't know.
perfect. I love it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I really like Deadpool too, but I don't know. It's more of in the good range for me. Like, it's not. I would not rank it quite that high. I think I was gonna hold on. Let's see where is it.
Now you have Deadpool 2, but you have the extended cut. If you, I don't know if you want to like use.
I mean, I don't know. I feel both cuts are really about the same.
All
Like, I
right.
think they're, I mean, I like some of the stuff in the extended cut. I don't like some of the other stuff. It's, it's always like a bit of a give and take there, I
Mm.
think. And I don't know. I think it's really, I think it's a better film than Deadpool.
Yeah.
I really like it, but I wasn't in love with it.
Um,
And and I kind of love some of the stuff that it does, though. Like, I think it has probably the best post credit scenes
oh,
in history.
that's the thing where I feel like the extended cut does a little bit better because it adds a little bit more to. Again, just to mention the extended cut for people who weren't privy to what we mentioned before we recorded. The extended cut I feel is a little bit weaker because it adds, I think, a little bit too much at the beginning, where less of the impact of like Deadpool's grief. But the extended cut also adds in like a one or two a little more non sequiturs to like the time traveling bullshit in the and the montage, the end credits montage, and like it's fantastic. That stuff again. I appreciate the movie so much because back when this came out, we were like, okay, they're gonna end the X-Men cinematic universe. Now there have already been rumblings by the time the movie came out. Um, so I love how much they packed into here. I love that they packed in Lady Death. I love that they packed in Cable. I love that they adapted the Genesis storyline. I love that they even like gave him like the time travel belt, which was like a thing he had like in the early comics. He could do it. He had a time travel belt, which was a teleporter as well. And so I love that they did all that stuff. And so I love that it felt so comprehensive. You know?
I guess I really like a lot of the stuff that this movie does. I mean, I think the take on Juggernaut here is amazing.
Yes.
And also that theme song, you unfortunately don't hear it that well, but then it plays during the credits, and it is just hilarious, right?
Oh fuck, it's the Juggernaut.
No, I think it was like, oh holy shit balls,
Yes,
holy shit.
Yeah, it's the Juggernaut.
Yeah, you can't stop this motherfucker.
Yeah, like first time you hear it is like so low after the bridge crash. Like it's so low, but then it's really good. Everyone gets more to do. Like Colossus gets more to do, and I really wish they had made the X-Force movie. I really do.
Yeah, like they really riff on it, like here, and it's just and it's a great riff. And I mean, those I have to say, Brad Pitt's cameo.
It's really good. But I know
Oh my God.
I love is that like I'm not quite sure if they reshot or if this was like. Here's what's kind of weird. All right, so Pete, by Rob Delaney, he's technically playing Peter Wisdom, which is a British spy in the comics, right? Now, Rob Delaney, he's like an American expat living in Britain, so maybe that might be a reason why they cast him. I don't know, but like it was meant to be more overt that he was playing Pete Wisdom, but I feel like they reshot something. I remember seeing like a really old teaser where they mentioned like Pete Wisdom, right? But in the finished movie, I'm not quite sure. Again, maybe it's my faulty memory. They call him Pete W. But like he's meant to be playing Pete Wisdom, and I think like I don't know, maybe there's a rights thing. Maybe he was too different, I think it was just like I think the joke overall was meant to be like a joke on how unfaithful X-Men adaptations can be. Because like you had like 5 different Jubilees, and you had like 3 different Psylocks,
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a joke. And I feel like
and 2 Colossi, one of whom is never outside his armor.
Yes. Although they did want the first Colossus to be like his body, his motion capture.
Oh yeah, they did.
They did. They wanted him to do the motion capture, but not the voice or anything. And he's like, nah.
Oh, okay.
I would have been cool, but I understand.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think it works better anyway because it's a very different character.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, right? Because they really do. I mean, I like how like I think in the first movie, was it that he said, wait, which professor is it, Stewart or McAvoy?
Yeah, okay, so like you know like the post credit scene to X-Men Origins, right? Where it's like, oh look, it turns out that Deadpool survived. He opens his
I
eyes.
think I think that, yeah, that was one of them, right? Because I think there were several.
There
Yeah,
were
but
several.
so
There were several planned, and there were several that were. And there were like only two that were filmed. But like, yeah, one of the ones that was planned was Deadpool opening his eyes, and then he would be talking to the actual Deadpool.
really,
Yes, like that was to be like, oh, like see, like meant to like, so that was be like, oh, look, see, like it's a meta moment. So like, oh, we get it, haha, joke, joke. Um,
but
uh,
instead they went with the one where it's like I think he just whispers, like does a shh to the camera or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. And so I thought that was really funny. Again, I love the way these movies kind of taken all of that, all any of the ideas that had potential from that movie and reuse them. Because then we have, I know it probably would have happened otherwise, but like just to see like Deadpool just shoot Origins Deadpool, like okay, that feels like at least it came from the seed of the idea for that original post credits or one of those proposed post credits where like, aha, they're facing off or like they meet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really love all the stuff that Deadpool 2 just kind of takes and riffs on or remixes. I really do. I think like the stuff where he tries to cut the bullets with the katana in this one, and then it's
Yes.
like he starts bleeding, and it was actually kind of a shame. I remember, I think I saw it, I think it was in one of the trailers, because they kept changing the dialogue that he has in costume in post. I think
Mm.
like in one of the trailers where he does that reenactment and then you see him bleeding, he goes like, "This is what happens when you turn 40." And I think in the final movie he's like, "Your bullets are really, really fast," or something.
I
You know,
don't know. They were both funny. I think the jokes are so much better in this one. Like they're a lot more. Like I think they got more of a handle on what when to use jokes and how
yeah,
to use them. Because like I said, like the first one, it feels like they were insecure, so they wanted as much jokes as possible. And there's still a lot of jokes in this one, but a lot of them are more situational and a lot more character.
right.
Like where he's like, I love his jokes when he's like in prison with hot hands, and he's like I'm Spee over here dying of cancer. It's so dark, but it's like he's just so blasé. The joke is in how like nonchalant, like fuck it, I'm just gonna waste away.
Yeah, I mean, I love the suicide montage, because it's just one of those things where, they really just embrace the absurdity of his superpower, right? Like,
Yeah,
because he can regenerate even if you rip him in half, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
um
Um. Okay. Yes. What else? What else? I don't know. It's a really fun film. I really
it's
enjoy it.
yeah, it's definitely an improvement, I think, on the first movie from almost in every single way, right? Like, I
Mm.
mean, I think it's funnier, it has better action, it has like, I think the storytelling is better, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and it has better villains. What can I say? I mean, I just, right, I really like this take on Juggernaut. Like, I think
Mm.
he's pretty cool here. Even though I mean, I'm not sure I actually get like what his motivation is. Like, it's kind of like, wait, so why is he helping the kid, or what does he see in the kid, or but whatever. It's still pretty cool.
He mentions like Professor X once, which I think is funny.
Yeah, he does, like, because my brother's in a wheelchair, so we're even or something.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Again, AS whatever. It's fine. It's good. Your turn.
Um,
Dark Phoenix.
oh, okay, yeah. So let's see. Yeah, so I'm gonna put it also up in the A rank. Yeah,
All right. Well, I think we both agree on this one. It's insanely good.
yeah, yeah. I have to say, it strikes me as just weird that this film has such a low Rotten Tomato score. I mean, I think it's like I think it has like maybe 22% or something. I would need to double check, but it was so underrated, just so underrated when it came out. Um, and I have a lot of, I remember watching this film and kind of feeling like, okay, this isn't great, but it has some stuff that's good, and I kind of looked. I felt it has this weird atmosphere to it.
Yeah. It's compelling. Like it's compelling. There's a bit more, it's a entrancing quality to it. Like the way it starts, like it starts so, everything about it is just so like I don't want to say grounded, but like very personal. I use the word voyeuristic before we recorded. Like you see like just this really intimate character friendly moment, and then it just cuts to, like this little girl who's like so out of context of what happened to her life after like her parents are presumably dead, and then just like the fucking score of this movie is so
Yeah,
good. Like
yeah.
it adds to that kind of ethereal quality. Like you don't know what's going on. It's like almost fantasy like.
Yeah, exactly. It is sometimes. I mean, I remember thinking, is this whole thing a dream? Like, if
Yes.
you think about this movie, especially like in and of itself, I would say, okay, the plot kind of, the plot hole makes sense. It's not always super coherent, maybe, but it really makes sense. It holds together, like nicely. Like I would say, in and of itself. If you try to think of this as like X-Men 4, even in the rebooted timeline, I'm like, there's like a lot of stuff there that just doesn't fit, right? Like even with all the continuity problem, but even for that, it's still like I'm. So to me, it's kind of like if you look at it as an X-Men 4, you know, movie, it's like wow, it adds to the surrealism of it. It adds to this feeling like, hey, is this someone's like subconscious? I don't know, dream or memory of some X-Men event that happened. Like it's all happening. Like it's all internalized and everything is kind of wrong or something.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I feel like part of that is intentional, and part of that is just um,
A side
a
effect.
side effect of the fact that this movie had like an insane production history. Or like,
Yeah,
okay, we were like, well, we know this is gonna be like the start of a new trilogy, of like where we're gonna focus entirely on the X-Men 2000s cast,
yeah,
or to like, oh no, okay, we're being sold to Disney. This is gonna be the end of the X-Men franchise. It'll be a big 2-part finale. Oh, it's gonna be one movie. Okay, so this is the movie. Oh, we need to reshoot the last 20 minutes. Okay, fine, but the director is probably not gonna be able to be available, so we're gonna get some studio guy to reshoot that.
wait,
I,
Kinberg wasn't available for the reshoots?
I've heard rumors that he wasn't, that the train sequence was not him,
Oh,
which is
wow.
insane because whoever, again, if that's true, then like this movie is like way better than it has a right to be,
Yeah,
that train sequence is fucking amazing.
it
um
is. It is.
but yeah, no, so watching this, knowing all of that, but watching this, it's like it feels like they had to get the barest essentials of what they wanted the movie to be,
Right.
like as close as close and as fine as it's fine, like fine by, like, I mean very thin, fine, not like fine like okay, I mean like fine like thinly, um as they could. Like there was no room for like error, there was no room for like extraneous bullshit, and so it's probably the most fine tuned of the movies in terms of like what it wants to be, even if there's like um some missteps, as X-Men, the first one. Like it feels the closest in terms like how it's doing things and how successful it is at doing things as the first one.
I would say I think I rank Days a bit, a bit higher than that. I think
Oh no,
Days is
I mean like yes, Days is much better.
yeah.
I mean more just comparing like ones that aren't that great
Oh,
with
yeah.
like, but like still like they're really trying, you
Yeah.
know like that. It feels so much closer to the first one, in that way, we're like,
It
yeah,
does.
it's so close to being like this amazing thing.
It
And in some parts it is, in
it
some parts it
is.
is.
Yeah, no, I love how stripped down it is, how sometimes they just really take some of these things, like the plot is kind of bare, but that's by design. I mean, it sort of flirts with, being really like operatic and cosmic and having all these complications, but all of that cosmic stuff, it's ultimately in the service of this really introspective,
Yeah.
personal narrative.
it's a drama. It's like a drama more than it
It,
is like a comic movie, you know?
it is. It's like a dark. I mean, I would say it's like a dark psychological drama, right? Like this is a bleak film. You know,
Yeah,
it's
Richard Newby, who's a critic for the Hollywood Reporter and some other venues that I follow. He's a mutual of mine. He mentioned in his review of it, like it's like a chamber film, like like just
mm,
dialogue, like two characters in a room, and like you see so many. Like, I think the best parts of the movie are when that's what happens. Because it happens so many times, just characters sitting down, just exploring their emotions, with each other, and it's so like engaging. It's got such an engaging quality to it, and I feel like it 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 didn't deserve to come out in the climate that it did. Like
no.
like this was 2018, right? Or 2019?
It was I think it was delayed to 2019. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it came out in 2019 after Endgame.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like this was like the year of like really big, insane endings for franchises. You had Game of Thrones, I believe, or like the year people were still reeling for Game of Thrones. You had Endgame. You had this. And I feel like people when it was so like the end of the X-Men film franchise, that sets expectations. Like
Yeah.
people, like okay, like oh, it's just a single one-off movie. They're redoing the Dark Phoenix saga again. Like, oh, I understand. I understand people like they're the last movie. They're doing something they already did. But I feel like it adds so much more to what the characters were going through. It adds so much more to how they react, how the personal and like and how the personal dynamics really change. I think it's worthwhile. Like it's like I'm glad they did this. I'm glad they redid it. I mean, because if this had ended with like another like one-off villain, and then we would just be left with that one Dark Phoenix movie. And this is so much better. This is so much more worthy. Is it like a perfect adaptation? No, but for what it is, it's a fine fucking film.
No, I completely agree with that. I mean, it's just it's really sad, right? Like I like to think that expectations are a bitch, because a lot of people, it you know, you come into the theater with all these preconceptions of what a movie should be, and then you don't really see the movie that's in front of you, right? Against your expectations, the film that you actually get does not, it does not match that. It does not live up to that. And so I think this film really was a victim of really expectations. People had all of this, they had these notions of what this movie was supposed to be, and then what they got was so much different, and so much more interesting. I mean, I think it's funny that, isn't it weird, right? Like there for however long these films have been, like there has not been a really consistent or good X-Men score, right? And then finally Dark Phoenix, that everybody is crapping on, it has like easily the best and most memorable score, right? By Hans
Yes,
Zimmer. I mean, Hans
I
Zimmer is, yeah, he's such an amazing composer. Like
mm,
he really is. And he comes out swinging here, right?
he does. I feel like the X-Men they're best at like obviously the X-Men title theme is amazing. Like it's iconic. But like
Mm,
other than that, when you get to individual movies, the main theme is always like the best one. And then the rest of it all just kind of filler themes, filler tracks,
yeah.
Like
Oh
X-Men,
yeah.
X-Men Apocalypse, I think has like a really great remix of the title theme. And then Apocalypse's theme itself is also amazing. Like the dun 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 dun, that
Mm.
one. Uh,
I think so.
it's
I
really
would.
good.
I Yeah.
And then other ones are like I can't remember. But this one, I remember right now, like the way it's kind of drops in, like in this really kind of slow piano riff.
Yeah.
It's so good,
It
so
is.
fucking good. So it grips you, grips you.
It does, and I think like I really appreciate the music during the space scenes, right? Because it feels like it gives you this feeling of like ethereal, like something ethereal, and it's like the movie slows down and it gets like really intentionally languid, and like sometimes the dialogue just goes down to a whisper. Like I mean, I think which Dune is now popular for, like
Yeah,
everybody's like whispering and trying to make it dreamy and stuff.
Dune
Um,
sucked ass. I'm gonna say it right now.
well, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, this movie did some of that stuff before like 2 years before Dune came out, and it's like, to me, like, well, just that combination of like music and sound and image, and that pace, it really like like there are these sequences that are really artful in this movie. Like it really just makes it all, kind of dreamy and just atmospheric in a way that I don't think the other movies have ever attempted.
Oh yeah, definitely. I want to listen to it right now. It's that good. But yeah, like the movie, I think I wish it was either longer or it had that. Okay, here we go. Ro, you're here. We got a comment. Ro says X-Men 3 Dark Phoenix. That's a lie. You're gonna get on. I'm gonna send you a link. Hey, Ro, comment right now if you're able to join the stream. I'm gonna send you a link to the stream right now. All right, and we're gonna debate this. All right. Hey,
Oh wow.
If you comment, like you're free to get on. Let me know. All right. But yeah, no. But it is Dark Phoenix is so much better than X-Men 3 on so many levels. But I think where it suffers is that, again, like some of the ones in like this A group we have going on here, where it feels like they need more time to flesh it out. I wish it was longer. I do. I wish it was longer. I wish that there was more like done on Genosis, the X-Men.
Genosha?
Genosha, yeah. I wish there was more done on that. I wish we saw more of that mutant society. I wish there was more with how much Professor X has sold out the X-Men to be the mild minority. I feel like that's such a perfect cynical beat for that character. It really brings in like some of the more lascivious qualities of the character from the comics in a way that makes sense with the themes. But they do enough. Like they give him that like really smug, grandstanding speech when he's getting the award, and I love it. Like James McAvoy plays a perfect dickhead, and we see him get brought down back to earth throughout the movie, and I love it. And I even love the way Jennifer Lawrence dies. I think her death is so tragic, and people make fun of it. But I love how she like kind of tries to gurgle like some last words. Like that hits me. When I first saw it, I was watching it in theaters. I watched this in theaters with my brother, and I'm like, God damn! Like Beast is right next to her saying, "No, come on, don't." Then she and like, Jesus Christ, man, Kinberg, you're a genius. This is amazing direction in acting.
I mean, I think what really is cool. I think what's very well done here is that, and what I think maybe people did not respond to well with that death. Actually, it's that everybody knew that she was going to die.
Yeah, she didn't want to be in it anymore.
Yeah, like I mean, I think it was just even obvious from the trailers, right?
Yeah.
But also, it's just I think the manner in which she dies really feels like so deliberately like anti-climactic and anti-super heroic, if you will. Like it's a very just it's like an accident, right? It's a very and it's like it's not even that she gets like vaporized or anything. She just gets like
impaled.
Yeah, she just gets like impaled. So it's a very down to earth. It's a very grounded death. Almost in a way that seems kind of that really goes against the genre, I think, and which is kind of ironic, I mean, because I think like Logan was very grounded as well in its own way, but I feel like here in this context, it's just people were not, they just really did not, that just rubbed them the wrong way,
Oh yeah, 100%. I feel like thought these were like attempts to be cheap or attempts that were like lazy, but like no, there's a very purposeful element to all this. I really enjoy that. It keeps everything very small, but again, it's tragic. It's tragic that it's an accident. It's tragic that it's so low scale. It's tragic that it's not heroic death. All that.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I just love how the sequence leading up to that, like how it's shot. Because
like it's such a dour sequence too. Like she confronts her dad, and her dad's a bum ass.
Yeah, but it's also,
It's so stark. It's so stark. It's
right, right. But
gray.
but the way that whole sequence is even filmed, like you have these extended pauses between the dialogue. The dialogue is just deliberately downscaled, and it really feels like we've entered a very different type of movie. Like I'm
Yeah.
just like, it kind of, I mean, I might be, giving it too much credit, but I kind of remember, I kind of like how, how in Refn movies, like you have these super long pauses sometimes between dialogue to the point where it just gets kind of uncomfortable, and you have to maybe pay more attention to everything else, all of the the staging and the cinematography and stuff. And that's the kind of vibe I got from that whole confrontation. Like there's this whole nervousness, like the dad is like really freaked out, really
Yeah.
he's trying to keep it together and he's barely saying much, and there are these weird pauses, right? And then but then also like the action, the way that the way that that whole sequence was staged after that, it was like I like that sequence was just like, I would say that sequence really emphasizes the character more so than the like action. Like the
Yeah.
action is really, it just works so well towards translating that sense of horror and overwhelming power.
Yes. Yes. Completely. I think the only part of the movie I don't like is it's just basically like the setup and backgrounding to, I'm gonna call them scrolls. I know they're the Bari, but who gives a shit? They're
Right,
scrolls. They're
they're
meant to be the
scrolls.
scrolls. They're meant to be the scrolls. Um, because of how like I feel like a lot of it is so superfluous. We don't need to know that much about them. And whenever it stops, like, oh, your name is Commander Kroll, like, and like I don't care. I don't care. Let's get back because they're such imposing, like sinister, mysterious villains. That like the stopping to like have those scenes between them is just so lame. And it slows it down. But even then, like when I first saw this in theaters, I hated that sequence where it was like, oh, we came from a planet that was attacked by the Phoenix Force, and it
Cosmic
didn't
Force.
yeah, but
Yeah.
but like I'm rewatching it, I'm like, the scene's not that bad. It's got really fun visuals, and I think Jessica Chastain is doing her best to like really sell this as like a fun kind of dialogue bit. Like she's really trying to sell this speech.
Mm.
I think that's maybe like a bit too monotone. I think like that kind of like that kind of wastes Jessica Chastain a little bit by making her so monotone. But I think it works sometimes. It works more often than it doesn't.
Well, here's what I would say. I think that for what they're going, I think the Dabari work really well, and I think Chastain's performance, and she's essentially playing somebody who's inhuman. She kind of looks human, but she's supposed to be like a human face for something that is completely inhuman and hence emotionless, right? So she's trying to do a deliberately like robotic, ethereal kind of otherworldly, you know, uh, I guess character, right? And I think she pulls it off because at the very least, whenever her character is on screen, it's really weird and creepy. And again, that atmosphere really plays into it, right? Like the slow way that she speaks and everything. And I think she does that well. Like I feel, like you, I believe the movie is missing some things. I feel it should be longer because the whole plot thread about the position of the mutants in the world, like after the train sequence, I was like waiting for some resolution on that. Like, what are the consequences of all this for mutant kind and their position, in relation to the government, and does the world even, and all of that stuff just feels kind of forgotten.
The position is poison corn. That's the position. See, it all works perfectly.
uh, I I don't know. Okay, but yeah, so I just mean that that should have not been dropped. That should have been covered. But
Yeah, I again, I feel like a 3-hour movie would have been the best compromise. But I understand, like this was the middle of the merger. Disney wasn't going to spend any more money on this shit. They had to do what they had to do.
yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but I think it just hits so many more times than it misses, and
Yeah,
and ultimately, I really think that it succeeds in its own terms, in terms of its goal is to really, to really, like, I think transport you into this subjective, dreamy, like state of mind, of that is like the Phoenix's state of mind. And I think it succeeds at doing that. You know, I love, again, I love the score. I love some of the action here, and again, I think there are certain passages in this movie that are very artful, that are
Yeah.
very like introspective and psychedelic and kind of experimental. Um, yeah, I do wish there was more towards the end, but
I do love that ending and like the metatextual nature of it, because that ending was reshot, and when they knew that they were being bought by Disney, that was reshot.
yeah,
And so I love the metatextual nature. Like if you know the background and where like the original plan, which was dropped before they filmed, so it's not like a complete kind of like rewriting of it, but like like they're the X-Men were supposed to lose, and it'd be like a big cliffhanger ending leading to Dark Phoenix Part 2, where like they had to go against the alien hive, mothership, whatever bullshit they were gonna do. I love that how you kind of feel like ending up to that, where the Skrull Queen is stealing the Phoenix Force from Jean,
yeah.
and she's becoming a Dark Phoenix. Get it? Because she's the Dark Phoenix of the title. Let's be honest.
Really?
Like, I mean, if you're thinking about it, like she becomes like an anti-Phoenix. She has the Phoenix powers.
Well, okay, look, here's what I would say. One thing to keep in mind. I don't think that, there was a lot of debate when this movie came, or not debate, but I think when this movie came out, a lot of people, myself included, were like, well, wait a minute, didn't Jean already, do the Phoenix at the end of Apocalypse, right?
Oh, no, that becomes more clear on rewatch. Yeah. Where it's
right.
like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I guess what I realized was that, oh, wait a minute, so it's just a cosmic energy. It is not the Phoenix Force. It's like she just absorbs all this cosmic energy, and then she forms it. She's the one who forms the Phoenix Firebird, towards the end. So to me, it's kind of like, well, okay, so Jean is the Phoenix. She is the Dark Phoenix, and that force is not the Phoenix Force. It's a cosmic force, but Jean's the one who creates like the Phoenix,
I meant more thematic terms, where like they both end up having the power, and she's like the evil one.
Yeah.
So like I know in the way I took it, and that part was that like he had that she had been able to tap in to the Phoenix energy Phoenix level of her powers in Apocalypse in a safe way that was guided. And when she gets like ruptured by the cosmic force, it takes away all those safeguards, and which is different than what happened in X-Men 3, where she was always kind of like kept under lock and key. And so what happens? That's why in X-Men 3 it overwhelms her personality. That power eliminates her personality. Well, in this one, it's something that she's actually kind of struggling against, because she has that kind of like experience with it already because of Apocalypse.
Okay, can I just interject to say that my opinion is that in X-Men 3, the reason she has the Phoenix power is actually because it's like a secondary mutation, like because Magneto's machine affected her.
Oh yeah, I think that was implied in X-Men 1, but like I think they dropped it. I think they did. I think that was just one thing they retconned out.
I think it's still held true in the second movie, right? Because she starts like, they mention how her power has been amplified since the events in New York, and then it's like so you see like the fire forming around her, and like her telekinesis is like off the charts, and then at
that
the
makes
end,
sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, but I still like to think that's the canon. That's like that was like the truth
I know
of her
you
power.
do. I know you do, but it's not. They retconned it. They retconned that shit out. Let's be honest. But yeah, no, that's how I took it. Especially in my rewatches, that's how I took it, because that makes more sense to me. Like that's why she's more in control. She's not like overwhelmed by it. She doesn't become like a blank slate, like an X3, because she's already been using this power, and this is just kind of like gets rid of all the safety nets, and it's overwhelming her.
Yeah, and it's a new level of it. Like I think it's just like whatever her great power already was. This is just this adds all of the, this takes away all the precautions, but it also amplifies it like even more so.
Yeah, but what I want to say was that we're building up to like this climactic ending where like the Skull Queen is taking the Phoenix power away from Jean, and then out of nowhere, a SWAT team just kidnaps all the X-Men, and they're the mutant containment unit with big patches on their armor or on their shoulders, blazing with the initials MCU, and they're taking them away to parts unknown to be imprisoned,
Oh,
and like they were filming this after the negotiations and merger were already underway and were confirmed. So this is, I love that metatextual nature of it because it feels like, okay, this wasn't as big as like a finale they would have wanted, but I'm glad that that has to be on purpose.
I mean, it seems too coincidental, right?
Yeah, and especially at the end where like she crashes that train, but is able to save all the X-Men and keep them like safe, keep them like together, and like that's, I think that's a statement about this franchise.
Mm.
Like yeah, cool, we're taking back to you, but like we're still gonna be one thing. We're gonna be like we're trying to safeguard each other. We're gonna safeguard what we had here. And I like that. I like that as an optimistic note to end this on. It might be the end, but I like that, at least in this fantasy, they're able to get away from the MCU.
Okay, that's a great take. I have to say I have not thought of that, but yeah, I think that's a great that's a great reading of it. You know, I mean, I hope that whatever happens next is that they don't try to undo that. They don't like it. I hope the MCU doesn't like really try to create like its own meta text or whatever, like about like how no we're taking over the X-Men now, they're our X-Men or something.
Yeah. Although so many reviews are like, oh, Ken Feige is going to save the X-Men after that horrible Dark Phoenix movie. Fuck off.
Oh
But like, what? Scott Cyclops is so good in this movie. He's so like he doesn't have like too much to do, but he's so much better here. I think he's probably my favorite Cyclops in any of the films. This is
he
he's so good in this, like as
well,
a
well, well
Cyclops.
they finally let him shine, right? Like they
Yeah,
finally let him like take the lead. And I'm really like the thing is I'm a little disappointed that you see all this stuff in the trailers that never made it into the movie, and I'm kind of like, well, there was this supposed to be like this scene where he's like, Charles, just Xavier, Charles, just tell me what to do, and he's like, I don't know what to do, like it feels like there was even more of that
yeah.
that never made it.
I wish there was a extended cut of this because I feel like Scott already is so good, but there's definitely, like you said, like just so much on the cutting room floor. But I love that they give him that final moment with Jean, because like in X-Men X3, the only reason like it's so shit that they just kill him off like the first 10 minutes. And then the final beat is like, "Oh, Logan, I love you. Oh, I got murdered by Logan. Isn't that tragic? No, fuck off. Cyclops is dead. You, like you don't even register his death. This is insanity. But this one, it's like one, I like that Cyclops being alive and trying to like reach her like Logan did, but like failing because it's fucking disintegrating his hands. It's
Yeah.
great. It's a great moment because like it shows the breadth and the of his emotion, of his love, because he's willing to like at least attempt that, even though he would like disintegrate. And shit, and her going like being cognizant, not just a blank evil slate, mind-numbing roaring monster, is like, okay, I can't let that happen. So she's had more agency in this scenario about what to do. And she's not just like in the whirlpool of like a tornado and then just gets shanked. She's able to
Yeah.
act.
Okay, so here's the thing. She actually does get shanked. I mean, she gets stabbed, right? She actually gets stabbed during that final fight with the Dabari through the back. I think
Yeah.
it's like somebody grabs like a pole or some long thing or whatever. He just like stabs her through the back, like impales her, like lifts her up, and it's a huge like thing. And then I think she turns. It's like she maybe rewinds time even a little bit. I'm not sure, but she like turns the thing into water, like heals herself, or it doesn't do any damage, and then she disintegrates like the Dabari that does that to her, right?
Yeah,
And I'm like,
so good.
yeah, and that sequence is I mean, it's awesome for the way that it really depicts her taking control of her godlike power. I mean, I remember, I think I read some reviews where people were like complaining about her not having actually like she's not in the center of her story, and I'm like, no wait, she is in the center. Like she might be a little passive at the outset, but because her whole thing is like, well, I'm gonna try to find somebody who can help me, and she keeps getting disappointed by all these paternal figures, right?
Yeah.
Like Xavier is a disappointment, her father is a disappointment, Magneto, is another disappointment. Then like even Vuk or whatever her name is, like Vuk turns out to be yet another.
Skrull Queen. That's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah. The scroll, yeah, the queen is herself is another, disappointing manipulative figure, and then finally she's just no. I have to take charge. I have to, my own agency. I have to I have to take control of my destiny, not let anybody tell me what I should do. And then it's like, yeah, then she takes so all of that builds to her really taking charge, and once she does, I mean, it's like the gene. I'm saying I wonder if that whole part where she gets stabbed and then she just it does nothing to her. I'm like, well, maybe that's like another X3 reference, like because this
Maybe.
gene, yeah, she can't die from being like stabbed, like in the stomach. She's like invincible.
Yes. But okay, so I want to mention the scrolls in general are really good. Now, I love how like there was a bit of a back and forth, a bit of a controversy because this wanted to use the scrolls, and Captain Marvel was going to use the scrolls, and they both have rights to the scrolls. Like the Fox could totally use the scrolls because they were Fantastic Four villain. They can use the scrolls, but they came to a compromise that they would. And so Dark Phoenix just kind of like quickly just redubbed shit and all this kind of other stuff in the middle, and shot some other things during filming to make them not the Skrulls. They made them a completely different race that couldn't even shapeshift in the comics. And I say they're so much better than Captain Marvel. And not again, I'm not one of the people who are like, oh, Captain Marvel sucked. I thought Captain Marvel was okay, and it could have been better. But the Skrulls in Captain Marvel are so lame, mainly because they want them to be like innocent refugees and not villains. And like that's a take, I guess. But I want to see like villainous Skrulls. Dark Phoenix is your guy, because they're enigmatic, they're creepy. The way that they take over bodies or shapeshift into regular people and then go into these intense fight scenes is uncanny. It's weird.
It is uncanny. It is exactly like that word. It's uncanny.
And it takes more advantage of the fact that these are shape-shifting aliens that can look at anyone doing these outrageous things. That train fight scene where you see like people in cardigans and sweaters and like suit jackets just flip-flopping and just running into like machine gun fire. It's insanity, and I love it. I love it a lot.
No, I love that too. I mean, I kind of think they were inspired by stuff like maybe Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where it's like, the aliens, they just take on these familiar forms and they make them inhuman, and they're more like of this kind of hive mind force. Like that lack of personality is, intentional because it shows that they are something else. They're like, they're like this force that's like slowly taking over, and people, and they may look like people, but no, they're not. Like, I mean, that moment where, Magneto is shooting Jessica Chastain with those machine guns, and he's like blasting, chunks of flesh, I think, off of her. I mean, that like felt like a horror movie moment right there,
Yes. All right. So, what else? What else to say? I'm glad somebody does this. I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad it's, in my opinion, Dark Phoenix, Logan, and Deadpool 2 are kind of like the end. All of them do different things to bring a closure to the X-Men franchise. There's not one ending to this because it's too much. Like, I know there's only we're only talking about 12 movies so far, but like there's so much going on in this cinematic universe that I don't think it'd be silly to say that only one movie could be the finale. So I think that like they all pull equal duty in like bookending this. Like Deadpool does it to like the spin-offs, like the kind of ancillary stuff. It kind of like puts it close to the X-Men origin stuff and all the sillier stuff. And then Dark Phoenix does it to the prequel trilogy. And Logan, because it's still like the original Logan's brain if you take the actual canon and not this insane theory that it's the original canon all along. It still brings closure to like that aspect, that thread line, that bond you have to the original movies, So yeah. I think it all works together, and I love all three of those movies and I think that they are one solid ending.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's I don't know. I feel like it's not exactly like an ending, for me. I mean, it's kind of an ending, but it's also, very much not an ending. But
Yeah, I know what you mean, but like I feel like there's a sense of like, okay, we can can be different adventures, but we can walk away.
yeah, yeah, I like that. I think that's a good point. And I guess I will say, for a final word on Dark Phoenix, is that I really feel sorry for Simon Kinberg,
Oh man,
because
yeah.
yeah, and because like he just got like so much flack over this film. And also, if I'm not mistaken, this is the second time when he wanted to do a two-part Dark Phoenix movie,
Yeah.
but did not get to. If I might be, I don't
Yeah,
remember the
no.
whole development, right? Like from of what was happening after X-Men 2, right? But I remember, yeah, there were supposed to be two films back to back,
Yeah.
and I think so. So this would be the second time that a two-part Dark Phoenix storyline had to be, scrapped and turned into one movie.
And he's like, "Oh, they got the guy from X3 to do it again." And I'm like, "He did it great this time."
Yeah, he did. It's like a complete 180, like
Yeah.
from what,
He had
from
experience. He knew
yeah,
he knew what to do. He knew what a man learned from his mistakes. Anyway,
yeah.
last one. Um, one of the only spin-offs to make it through. They was rushed through. It was filming like Dark Phoenix during the merger. Um, I don't think it would have been made otherwise. We got New Mutants on PlayStation C.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
we're like, I like it. I like it a lot. Um, but it is an incomplete movie. I do not believe the rumors that like when it was delayed, it was like, oh, we have the director's cut that's more character based, or we have the more horror movie cut that is more focused on the horrors, and it's kind of recut it to like put the horror stuff at the forefront. And then like before it was premiered, like, oh, we went back to the original character focus cut. Lies. This movie is an editing mess. It is all over the place. There are things that are cut and just don't flow together. The pacing is horrendous. Um, and it just feels empty. It feels like there's missing tissue over the place. But I do enjoy it. Like with X-Men First Class, there are parts that I really enjoy. I think I like a little bit more than X-Men First Class. I think that the Danny and Rain's character and their dynamic and their love story, they have their romantic interest in the movie, is fantastic. It's like the best like lesbian romance in a comic book movie I've seen so far. Like a lot of comic movies are like, here's a lesbian character, and then they don't do anything with that shit. But New Mutants, I think, is such a beautiful dynamic, and it really blossoms, and it means so much to the characters and their story arcs. I think it's fantastic. I love it. And the other characters can be entertaining in parts. You have Roberto, who's I think the least entertaining. Anya Taylor-Joy's magic is awkwardly racist for no reason. But she gets like one or two moments where like, okay, there's a character here, and I think uh, what's his name? What's his name? Billy, Bobby, Sam, played by the guy from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Uh, he's fun. Like he can be fun. I do enjoy him. I wish that they had more to do. I think the spotlight was definitely on Danny and Rain. And I wish they had made the sequel. I think that if they had, they might have been like they would have been able to really sort of iron out the kinks. The director's plan was to have like three trilogy, a New Mutants trilogy, where each one would be a different horror genre. The first one would be like the haunted house. Second one would be body horror with Warlock, and third movie would be like demonic horror with Inferno. Unfortunately, that never happened. But it's fine. It's very, very messy though. Very messy.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that.
You rank it?
I kind of myself, I put it into like I'm also, it's kind of close to the bottom for me. Like I would say I would rank it like like that whole D level. Let me just see if I can uh, change this stuff around. Okay, so this is how I would put it in terms of, so I would say from best to worst. So for me, like Origins is still like the worst movie, but kind of, I mean, I think I didn't dislike New Mutants that much when I first saw it, and then it was just like over time, I think my opinion of it just
Yeah,
became
me
more
too.
negative.
Me too. I would have put I would have put a little, like maybe at least one more higher.
Mm.
But then I realized, like, you know what? That's where I would like rank Deadpool, X-Men Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, and it's not as good as those. Like I put Dark Phoenix in B, mainly because my B I think is a lot more stronger, than yours. Like your B is
Yeah.
like more real. Mine, like, there's so much good here, but it's like not quite there. So I put Dark Phoenix in my B, and I feel like it doesn't deserve to be there. C.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I feel like the movie has just a lot of problems, just like I think some of the basic storytelling problems with it. I don't know. I mean, people like to complain about Glass, about like how,
Oh
oh
my God,
well,
yes.
yeah, like I mean, I remember reading this movie and I was like thinking, wait, this is weird. There are so many parallels to Glass. Like, there's like the mental hospital for superpowered individuals, and it's like panoptic, and it's like there are security cameras everywhere, and a very small number of actual like people looking after them, though. But like Glass, at least, like, yeah, Glass had orderlies, Glass had um you know like actual security, right? Like, I mean, over here it's just like, wait, is that like just the one doctor who might be able to create force fields or whatever? Like, how don't they like need a staff or something? Don't they need to like where do they get the food? And like, how does it, like, it's just you start asking yourself these very basic questions that I'm not sure were really taken into consideration, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like, and this was really filmed like on a budget, and so like I think a lot of that was by necessity. Um, but also I wonder if like the actual cut of this, like, again, I don't believe that this is the director's cut at all. Maybe expands on this, because then we learn later on that this is part of Access Corp. You know,
Yeah.
um, so like, would we? And there was like a plan to whether or not John Hamm was going to be introduced as Mr. Sinister in the post-credit scene, but that was never filmed. And also, there was also a planned post-credit scene that was never filmed with Antonio Banderas as Roberto's father. And like, so there was lots of things in flux. Like, what was going on here?
Wait, was the ham scene really not filmed? Because I could have sworn I read that it was filmed but cut.
If it was filmed and then cut, then that's a shame. But again, I am loath to believe anything about the different cuts of this movie.
Mm. Okay,
Uh,
yeah. My general impression was that it definitely
was it?
felt like there was that like it felt like they were really really building onto a Mr. Sinister reveal. Like I feel like I could have sworn, like, because what I read was that I think they had more Essex Corp stuff that was kind of pruned from it. Like they were like
Yeah, yeah.
in my mind, like they would need to really just have a whole maybe like thread there in order to really bring this guy in. So I
Yeah,
imagine.
I heard that, again, this is all rumors, but I heard that one of the differences between the Disney approved cut was that they had to cut out all the greater X-Men ties.
Right.
Like, they
Like,
mentioned the X-Men, which is fun, like, because like if this is like the post DOFP timeline, then like they're a big franchise,
yeah.
Um, so, but that means that what's on the cutting room floor? Because like I don't believe that this was like an official spinoff, that they would have made this so threadbare and so unattached to the X-Men franchise. So like I wonder how much was cut out.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that there is missing connective tissue.
Hmm.
It and I don't know. I remember loving the trailers, right?
Yes, and I feel like it's a Suicide Squad situation where like everyone loves the scary trailers, and then the director Josh Boone is like, that's not really that representative of the movie. Our mind's more of a character piece, a teen drama. Like, we're getting into the mindsets of these teens, and then that's when we started getting like, oh, but they demanded a scary cut.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering like what happened.
Yeah, it's really. I feel there hasn't been so far, kind of a like a real, I don't know, extensive document or article or whatever, or documentary that just sort of put all of that into perspective.
Mhm.
Just like, that really went and said, okay, this is how it began. This is what happened. This happened at this point, and then this is what we ended up with. And I would be fascinated to see something like that, though.
Me too.
Yeah, because again, like I feel this movie has potential. I think Ilyana Rasputin is, despite being problematic, I think she's a highlight of the
Oh
movie.
yeah, no, Anya Taylor-Joy has so much charisma in this fucking movie. It's great. It's amazing. But yeah, that the dialogue is ridiculously on the nose. Why? Why?
The accent,
I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to like have like this Breakfast Club thing, especially then when they all walk off in the sunset. Like
right?
you can hear "Don't Forget About Me" playing. One of them should have raised their fist to the air.
Didn't they even like? Yeah, didn't they even directly reference the movie Breakfast Club? I think they have a scene where they just talk about it or something.
Maybe, but um, it's a it's a movie that it feels like Venom 2, where like there could be a really good movie in here,
Hmm.
but it's so whittled down to the bone.
No, I agree with that. I mean, although I will say in defense of New Mutants that it's so much more watchable than Venom 2 for me,
Yes,
because like
yes, yes.
it's just because I can see like every cut, like when it jumps like erratically, and I'm like, oh my god, this is giving me a headache, you
Yeah, for
know?
Venom 2, right?
Yeah, for Venom 2.
Yeah,
And here
definitely.
it's like, okay, I can see there's missing stuff, but it's like not, it's not that I'm like seeing missing shots like in between like
Or like with
scenes or
Morbius,
sequences.
or like Morbius.
The
Like,
Morbius.
I mean,
Well,
come on. Like the whole point where like he goes up to the podium and has to give a speech that we see in the
yes. Okay. Yeah.
trailer.
That was, yes. That I agree. That I agree with. Like,
Or when Milo goes to the bar and the girl is like, "Haven't I seen you before?" And like, "No, I think you remember. I think I remember seeing someone like you," which was clearly a payoff to when he's like a sick, like spindly old guy. He goes to the bar. He tries
oh,
to hit. That was clearly a payoff to a scene that was cut earlier of
oh,
him trying to hit on the
okay.
chick.
I had not thought of that, but like, I did not notice that. I would say in Morbius, it's still less noticeable. Like, it's kind of noticeable at the beginning. Like the whole, I'm still
Also,
not sure. Wait, what was
Tyrese
he
never
doing
uses
with
his
the
robot hand.
bats? And yeah, he doesn't. You see it like briefly, I think, in one shot or something, right? Like at
Yes.
when he's like approaching the manhole at the very end or something, and it's
Yeah.
like, and voila, you know.
Yeah.
But even still, like, I would still say Morbius hides the seams better, you
Okay,
know.
I say they're on the same level because, like, at least to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think this is still watchable because it has such a great through line. Like I said, the Danny and Rain stuff is great. The team bonding eventually gets good. You know, like
Yeah.
I think the moment like where they're doing the lie detector is a highlight. It's so fun. It's a fun little moment, and they all get
Mm.
their little beats and dialogue ticks in. But
Yeah. It,
overall, it's I don't know.
it it's like, yeah, I will say that I really like the cast. I think you can see that, the cast just has so much potential here, and it's a shame that this film just got. I mean, it was on the shelf for like 2 years or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think also it's like a movie that it feels nobody ultimately knew what to do with, you know. And that feels kind of sad. I mean, I would have, like, okay, I'm like, I wish this film had gotten the reshoots or whatever that it needed, that it got the support that it needed, because it has these parts, that are interesting at the very least. And I would have wanted to see like a fuller version of this realized.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but in the end, it is what it is, and like I feel it's unfortunately kind of like at the bottom. Yeah, so
Yeah, me
near the
too.
bottom for me.
It's because I think it's mainly because some of these are so good.
They are. They really are.
You know what? I'm gonna rearrange mine a little bit because I feel like
Yeah.
I'm not mine isn't distributed enough. Like I feel too much in A. I gotta give it to these two. Move
Okay.
that. I'll move that one up. Should I roll cut? Roll cut. Does roll cut deserve it? Rokat does deserve it. Rokat, again, it's so hard. It's really hard. It's hard to choose. It's hard. Rokat deserves it. The Rokat deserves it. It's such a fine, fantastic film. I think I'm gonna piss people off by putting Dark Phoenix there, but I got it.
Yes, thank you.
I got it.
I,
I'm gonna piss people off. I mean, yeah, I know I am.
you know, let's just say, like, I think we are, like, our rankings are a little ahead of their time. You know what I mean? It's like, because give it a few more years, and people will be like, oh yeah, Dark Phoenix really wasn't bad.
Let's reevaluate.
Yeah.
Dark Phoenix. But yeah, no, I feel much more better about that. New Mutants, yeah, it's gotta stay there. Like this is the one where, like, flawed, but really good stuff in them. That's C.
No,
all right,
that's totally fair.
Yeah. All right. So, final thoughts.
I mean, I think, I think the X-Men franchise or saga, whatever you call it, it was, it was an interesting. It was good, as a whole. It was cool. Like, I wish it had not been always subjected to all of this behind the scenes turmoil. I wish that the productions of these movies was smoother. That they had, as a whole, like, they had, like, more time. They had, I don't know. I kind of wish there was more X-Men films. I wish it didn't have to end the way that it ultimately did.
Yeah.
Because of all of this weird corporate restructuring stuff. Because that's really, like, that to me is always, like, what kills, good ongoing stories, good shows. Like, a new regime comes into some company and they say, okay, you have to cancel that animated series of Spider-Man. We need a new animated series of Spider-Man to sell these toys or whatever, and it's just it's sad that it happened, but I'm hoping at least some I'm hoping it will live on in some way, I guess.
Yes, definitely. And like I said, for me, my part, I'm glad that several of the more overt plot threads were able to be brought to a close. Like, I do think that Dark Phoenix definitely deserved a follow-up. Deserved, like, that 90s team, that 2000s team, whatever you want to call them, deserved their own trilogy. But I'm glad how it works as a pin drop for the prequel saga, even though they're not prequels. And Deadpool, like I said, closes off the silly, wacky shit that it's permeated. Like, only Deadpool could have been able to really put a feather in the cap of just all the ways that these movies don't, actually connect. And Logan, like that, I mean, come on, what better ending shot is, the new generation, moving on, and Logan, right there with his X on his grave, like,
Yeah.
the stories will go on. They'll go on. There's always another generation out there.
Yeah, there is. There definitely is.
So yeah, people keep saying, like, oh, it's not a hard bar. It's not a high bar to surpass for the MCU. No, there is. The bar is really high. Like, right now we have X. We saw him fight Stryker. We saw him fight Sentinels. They went to outer space. There was aliens, time travel, demons. I mean, like, the MCU. What the MCU is gonna do? What we think MCU can do, So, best of luck to them. Best of luck.
Well, they brought in Charles Xavier and then killed him off. So.
Yeah, that better be a joke in Deadpool 3. Okay, there's a lot. I know our chat got me a lot more excited for Deadpool 3. I want to see how they can handle that. I would hope. My biggest hope would be that it's not just Disney, like, wanking, and that's an actual kind of eulogy for this franchise. Because I don't think that they would make Ryan Reynolds the Deadpool for the MCU. I think that this is just a contractual kind of thing. Like, they want a Deadpool trilogy.
I mean, maybe
the movies are just that popular. I don't think that'd be like, okay, now Deadpool is in the MCU. Or maybe it will be. Who knows? But I think that this would be like the last Deadpool movie.
If it is like the last Deadpool movie, then and maybe that will be indeed the final note for the X-Men
Yeah,
films. I mean, maybe they'll put in a bunch of cameos into it, and really, I think that could be fun,
yeah,
because I mean, I remember even reading stuff that, because for me, like the Charles Xavier that shows up in Doctor Strange too. Well, that's not like the Charles Xavier
no,
that
no,
we've
no,
seen in these films. He's not that. It's not the same, and it's not a real connection to that. So
no.
yeah. So I would be happy if Deadpool 3 came back and did something like a metaphorical, eulogy, metaphorical, goodbye X-Men, goodbye the X-Men cinematic universe. You were great while you lasted.
Yeah, like just riding off in the sunset.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. Anyway, let's know where you can find you.
So I'm available. So I run a Substack, a newsletter called textualvariations.substack.com. Also, you can catch me on Twitter at MLS532. And if anybody's interested to hear more of my thoughts on X-Men or alternate cuts or whatever I'm hoping to write about that, you can subscribe, and that would be great.
All right, and you can find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. We went on a long discussion about these films, but well, can you blame us? There's like 13 of them. I think we averaged like 20, 25 minutes each. That's what they're worth.
Wow. Yeah, that was long.
It was long. All right, so thank you so much for listening, and see you again next time.